What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 3JM. Chapter 6 Piercing the Pirates Part 2. Advertisement. Somewhere on Carlo Carl Island. In the luxuriant dense forest, tall and towering ancient trees are everywhere in sight. The dense canopy makes it difficult for sunlight to penetrate, and the sound of running water is very clear in the quiet dense forest. Puncture, the pirate ship is sailing in the river channel in the dense forest. The huge volume almost blocks 2/3 of the river channel. The towering main mast constantly collides with the branches of towering ancient trees on both sides, and even pulls the sails. Make more gaps. Finally, the pirate ship entered a large lake and landed on a slightly flat place. Finally landed. Woo, my god, it's the fragrance of the earth. I'd rather cross the windless zone than sail under the deep sea again. Mom, it must be your spirit in heaven who has blessed me. Quote. The pirates on the ship seemed to be holding back for a long time, and quickly put down the rope ladder and the board, and rushed to the land in a crowd, feeling the peace of mind that their feet were on the ground. Even Uren, Baka, and Jiro didn't stay on the boat, but followed the other pirates and set foot on the long-lost land. In fact, the pirates on the Puncture pirate ship have only been ashore for more than 10 days, which is nothing to pirates at all. It's just that during the more than 10 days of fleeing, the pirates on the Puncture pirate ship have endured tremendous psychological pressure. Because when they sailed on the bottom of the sea, the other 4 ships in the same company were all crushed by the huge sea pressure on the bottom of the sea because the coating bubbles that isolated the seawater burst, and the boat and people were buried on the bottom of the sea. In the end, only the next pirate ship, Puncture, survived, but the pirates on board did not know when it would be their turn. Death is not scary. Terrible is the mental torture before death. Originally in the deep sea, the pirates on the Puncture pirate ship have been maintaining a high degree of tension, and some people have even sat and waited for death, but death is something that neither waits for the left nor waits for the right. There is often the illusion that it will come at any time, as if teasing you. The pirates on the ship almost have a nervous breakdown, and many people have deep-sea claustrophobia. Fortunately, they survived to reach the first half of the Grand Line, the first land island they set foot on in the past 10 days. Little ones. Standing on the shore, Wu Lun shouted to his subordinates on the shore, clean up the surrounding weeds, cut down some trees, and set up a temporary camp. We'll have a good rest on the shore these 2 days. Advertisement. Oh, long live the Duke. Yes, Your Excellency the Duke. Get to work quickly, His Excellency the Duke has given an order. Quote. The pirates responded cheerfully, and immediately got busy in the dense forest on the shore. Clear up the weeds, cut down trees, put up the tent. Build a guard post. A group of unkempt pirates are busy, not to mention how happy they are. Ahem. Watching his subordinates regain their vitality, Uren coughed twice, and said to the 2 people in front of him, Baka, stay here for now, Ji Luo and I will lead a few people to disguise, and then go to the city to buy something. This. All right. Hearing that he could not advance into the city yet, Baka sat down on a stone as if discouraged, and responded weakly. Master Duke, let me go into the city and have a look. Jiro said calmly, Marine must have ambushed in the city, let me go and check first. Uren glanced at Ji Luo, thought for a moment, then patted Ji Luo's shoulder, and said softly, then it's hard work for you, remember to keep in touch with the phone bug. Leave it to me, Your Excellency the Duke. Jiro nodded, and took a small phone bug with a gold crown on his head from Uren, which looked a bit like Uren. Suddenly, Wu Longxu narrowed his eyes and asked, by the way, Ji Luo, how many plague bombs do you have? Jiro looked at Uren, as if he understood the meaning of his captain, and replied, there are not many left, only 5 AH-40 plague virus bombs, most of which were used when blocking the BIGMOM pirates on Cullen Island. Lost. Advertisement. Then think of a way to make some more, and put them in Sculpture City, Skorky. Uren said in a cold tone, if we are discovered, we will place the battlefield in the city and detonate your plague bomb, and then take advantage of the chaos to leave. A grim smile appeared on the corner of Ji Luo's mouth, he stretched out his tongue and licked his somewhat dry lips, and said slowly, I understand, leave this matter to me. Open black lens bracket city of sculpture close black lens bracket Skokie. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Marine is on a mission, don't get in the way of idlers. You guys, go over there and search. Don't fall behind, follow me. Quote. The Marine, which had been entrenched in the port all this time, made a massive mobilization. More than 4,000 Marines sent out search teams one after another, appearing in the streets and alleys of the city, searching for suspicious persons like wolves and tigers. The CP organization notified Marine immediately after the spies in the piercing pirates lost contact. Without the cooperation of the spies, the original plan would be difficult to implement, so Marine imposed martial law on the entire city, looking for the piercing pirates who would appear on the island at any time. Because, the last message sent by the spy organized by CP was that the pirate ship Puncture had entered the waters of Carlo Carl Island and was expected to land on Carlo Carl Island within 3 hours. According to previous intelligence, the piercing pirates lacked supplies and were unable to go to other islands. Carlo Carl Island was the only option for the other party. If the piercing pirates didn't want to die of thirst at sea, they could only bite the bullet and land on Carlo Carl Island, crashing into Marine's ambush circle. Originally, according to Marine's original plan, as long as Vlad Uren, who pierced the pirates, was not an idiot, he would not enter the port swaggeringly. In that case, Marine would only be overjoyed, and then encircle him at sea. According to Marine's speculation, the piercing pirates will definitely go around the port, find a hidden place to land on Carlo Carl Island, and then send people into Sculpture City, Skokie to buy supplies such as water, food, vegetables, and fruits. Therefore, Pelusolino Vice Admiral, Kuzan Vice Admiral and others plan to ambush 6 warships and more than 4,000 sailors on the side of the port. Gao Ji, Marine will be able to get the news from the spies placed in the piercing pirates by the CP organization, and then start operations. With a thunderous blow, in conjunction with Cross's living fruit, they will be arrested in one fell swoop, or the members of the piercing pirates will be arrested. Rush to the outside of the city, and then carry out the encirclement and suppression. But now, the spies have been discovered, and Marine has lost control over the whereabouts of the piercing pirates. In addition, Carlo Carl Island is very large, and Marine has no ability to monitor the entire island. Knowing that the pirate who pierced the pirate group will enter the Sculpture City, Skokie, and may even leave after the other party's supplies are completed, Marine has no idea. In order to prevent the above possibilities, Marine can only take the initiative to attack, and then cooperate with the agents of the CP organization and the intelligence personnel of the Marine Intelligence Division to strive to control the entire Sculpture City, Skokie, and strive to enter the city before the pirates who puncture the pirate group. After that, you can quickly find each other. Chapter 7 Call from Cipher Pol. Advertisement. The next morning. Open black lens bracket City of Sculpture close black lens bracket Skokie. Amphitrite Cross, I am Feli, a member of the secret Cipher Pol CP8 directly under the world government, code-named Dining Knife, and I am calling for you to assist us in our operations. A middle-aged man in a black suit and a black top hat stood in front of Cross and said to him indifferently. In the alley, Cross frowned and looked at the man in front of him, and said, First a Marine, not an agent of the CP organization. If you want to recruit me, let Pelusolino Vice Admiral give me orders. Are you refusing the world government's call for you? Fairy asked coldly. I said, as long as there is an order from Pelusolino Vice Admiral, Sengoku Admiral, or Marshal Kong, I will definitely assist you in your actions. Cross spread his hands and said helplessly, unfortunately, you don't have an order. Quote. Cross did not feel afraid just because the other party was Cipher Pol directly under the world government, so he obeyed the other party's orders. If there is an order from naval headquarters, he must obey the call of the other side. If not, he wouldn't put aside his identity as a Marine and help the other party like a licking dog as soon as he heard that the other party was from the world government. He is a Marine, not an agent of the CP organization. This is a matter of position that must not be confused. Fei Li's face was not very good looking, but considering Cross's identity, he didn't dare to say anything cruel. Because the little devil in front of him is not only a nobleman of the Kingdom of Tobias, one of the countries that joined the world government, but also valued highly by naval headquarters, Admiral Sengoku and Great Staff Officer Crane, and even has enough power to rival him. A mighty monster of Don Quixote da Flamingo. Believe it or not, if he dared to threaten the other party with harsh words, but was killed by the other party in a rage, there would be no punishment. Even if the 5 elders knew about it, they would only reprimand them 1 or 2 sentences at most, without any suppression or punishment. After all, a little monster with great strength at the age of 15 will definitely become a powerful force for Marine in the future. As long as he does not make a big mistake of principle, no matter whether it is the world government or Marine, he will only win over the other party. Fairy pondered for a moment, seeing that Cross wanted to leave impatiently, he had no choice but to say, we found the trace of the ship's doctor who pierced the pirates, the polluter, Bel Von Gyro, he was named by the world government. You don't want him to turn this bustling, Sculpture City, into a plague-ridden dead city. Are you talking about the guy who had released a plague virus on a country, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people, just to experiment with his research results? Cross' face changed slightly, and he immediately wanted to come to the man mentioned at the meeting. Advertisement. That's right, according to the information I know, the sculptures and statues in Sculpture City, Skokie are all under your control, so with your help, our success rate of capturing each other alive will be even greater. Feli didn't hide anything, and directly said that he needed Cross's ability. Cross's eyes flickered, he thought for a while, and said, I need to report to Pelusolino Vice Admiral, he agreed, and I will assist you. Fairy originally didn't want Marine to know this in advance, so he found Cross, a capable, recruit, and underage kid. But the kid in front of him was not bluffed, and he didn't show the CP organization's face at all, which made him feel a little numb. There was no other way, Feli had no choice but to nod, and agreed. Then you can inform Pelusolino Vice Admiral, but I hope that this matter will not be publicized. Cross squinted his eyes, somewhat understanding why the world government wanted to capture Bel Von Gyro alive, but he didn't speak, just nodded, and then took out a small blue phone bug from his arms, dial Pelusolino. As an important part of this battle, Cross has been given a lot of power and freedom, and the phone bug in his hand can directly contact the 2 fleet commanders, Kuzan Vice Admiral and Pelusolino Vice Admiral. Boo 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 boo. Boo 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 boo. The phone rang for a while, but still no one answered. Cross was a little embarrassed, looking at the CP agent on the opposite side, he almost wanted to dig out a fairy castle with his toes on the ground. Have you not gotten through yet? Farah's face was not very good, and he said anxiously, if you let Bel Von Gyro go, you Marines will be responsible. Ahem, maybe Pelusolino Vice Admiral is a bit busy, wait for me to make another one. Cross coughed twice, resisting embarrassment and said. Without thinking about it, Pelusolino was probably shouting at the black phone bug on his wrist again. Boo 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 boo. Boo 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 boo. Cross dialed Pelusolino's number again, and the phone bug rang again. Moshi Moshi, I'm Pelusolino. Very strange. Advertisement. Moxie, Moxie, why is no one talking? It's so strange. Suddenly, a familiar voice came from outside the alley. Cross even turned his head to look, and saw Pelusolino wearing a casual outfit, walking on the street with 3 steps, yelling in distress at the black phone bug on his wrist. This guy, Cross, facial muscles twitched, and he was really speechless. Forehead. Felly opened his mouth, wanting to complain about something, but he really couldn't complain about such a high-ranking naval headquarters vice admiral. Cross hung up the phone, stood at the intersection of the alley, and shouted with a bit of gritted teeth, Mr. Pelusolino, this way. Pelusolino raised his head, saw Cross at the intersection of the alley, and raised his hand to say hello. Hey, little Cross, what's the matter? As he spoke, he held a cigarette in his mouth, pouted his lips, raised his legs and walked towards Cross, and said rather distressedly, I'm answering the phone, but it's really strange that no one has answered me. I made the call. Cross gritted his teeth. If you keep shouting at the black phone bug on your wrist for tapping, of course no one will reply. Pelusolino was taken aback for a moment, then carefully looked at the black phone bug on his wrist, scratched the back of his head, and said embarrassedly, Hey, I'm really sorry, what a mistake. Ahem. Seeing the farce in front of him, Faley deliberately coughed twice to attract the attention of the 2 people in front of him, and said seriously, Poor Solino Vice Admiral, there is something, our CP organization needs to recruit Amphitheater Cross to help, I hope you can agree. Recruiting Little Cross. Mr. Fairy, may I know what it is? Pelusolino asked with a look of surprise on his face, he couldn't help but raised his hand and touched his chin. Chapter 8 Arrest Operation. Advertisement. Are you sure it's here? That's right, this is where my men watched Belle Von Gyro go in. Cross, Fairy of CP8, and several agents in black suits quietly came to an alley and watched a clinic across the street. The clinic is not big, and the red brick walls outside have turned into Madara's mottled black-gray, which even looks a bit crude. There are a pair of stone knight statues at the door, holding stone swords, which are carved lifelike. The year has been blown by wind and rain, adding a bit of breath to the years. What's your plan? Cross glanced at the small clinic in front of him, then turned his head and asked Fairy beside him. Because he is a member of the Piercing Pirates, it will be of great help to Marine's mission, so Pelusolino agreed with Cross to cooperate with the CP organization's actions, and only asked Cross to decisively kill the pirates if he could not be captured alive. Its kill cannot cause the opponent to release the plague virus in the city. Fei Li took out a silver pocket watch from his pocket with a blank expression, looked at the time on it, and said, Wait a while, we will have support. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw 2 men, one tall and one short, walking towards each other across the street. The 2 were dressed the same, both wearing black top hats, black suits, black leather boots, and gray coats. The tall one is more than 3 meters tall, the thin one looks like a hemp stick, with a long head, long gray hair shawl, deep eye sockets, high nose, protruding chin, long ears, and a very characteristic appearance. Not short, about 2 meters tall, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, with short black hair, about 2 meters tall, with short black hair, and carrying a hammer nearly 1 meter long. Let me introduce, these 2 are members from CP9. Elmo, Gadley. Fei Li briefly introduced to Cross. CP9. Cross looked at the 2 in surprise. That's right, among the Cipher Pol directly under the world government, there are 8 organizations on the surface, namely CP1, CP8, and CP9 is a special organization hidden in the dark. Fei Li explained to Cross. Cha-cha-cha, you really are a brat, so interesting. Elmo bent down and approached Cross with a smile. It's too rude, Elmo. Gadley scolded in a deep voice. Advertisement. Cha-cha-cha, you are so serious. Elmo straightened his body and said rather bored. Cross ignored the 2 CP9 agents, and directly asked Fairy beside him, Are you all here? What's your plan? The plan is simple. Felly pointed to the pair of stone statues of knights at the entrance of the clinic and said, Because no one will guard against the 2 statues, so you use the power of the living fruit to revive the stone statues of knights at the door. Let the animated stone statue of the knight attack. Elmo and Gadley's second wave hand, use the sea stone chain to control each other. Remember, Belle Von Gyro is a paramesha narcotic fruit-capable person, don't be touched by him. After hearing Feely's plan, Cross looked shocked and said in disbelief, Are you kidding? You actually want to deal with a guy who will release the plague virus in the city at any time, are you crazy? Cha-cha-cha, watch your tone, kid. Elmo grinned ferociously, leaned forward slightly, approached Cross, and said slowly, Sir Fairy is also the operations director of CP8, not you, Marine. The recruits can blame the existence, all you have to do is obey the order. Gadley on the side didn't speak, just took a step forward and stared at Cross coldly. Cross didn't speak either, and looked at Elmo without fear, his left hand was already pressed on the handle of the Jingsho knife at his waist, as if he would draw the knife out of its sheath at any time. Fairy stepped forward and smoothed things over and said, Count Cross, as long as you cooperate properly, we can catch Belle Von Gyro very quickly. If you let him go, you Marine will have to fight against him in the next battle. Under the threat of the plague virus. Because Cross is a recruit in the Marine and has no military rank, but his own strength and aristocratic status have to be respected by Ferry, so he is called the Count. Hearing this, Cross' face changed, thinking of some information about Belle von Giro he had seen. Belle von Giro has a perfect plague virus bomb named AH-40 Plague Virus Bomb, which once shined brilliantly in the Battle of Cullen Island and caused great casualties to the BIGMOM pirates. According to the spy placed by the CP organization in the Pirates, AH-40 Plague Virus Bomb has a killing range of about 10 meters high, but extremely lethal. If there is no antidote, it will die within 40 minutes. During the Battle of Cullen Island, the reason why the powerful BIGMOM pirates did not keep all the Pierce pirates was because they were blocked by the AH-40 Plague Virus Bomb, detonated by Belle von Giro, so that the Pierce the bandit escaped with 5 ships and more than 3,000 people. Thinking of this, Cross understands that if Belle von Giro is not eliminated in advance, then Marine will be attacked by AH-40 Plague Virus Bomb, when they encircle and suppress the piercing pirates, and the loss will be immeasurable. However, if Belle von Giro was not successfully captured or killed in the city, and the plague bomb was released by the opponent, it would definitely be a terrible human tragedy. Advertisement. If you are not willing to cooperate with us, we will still arrest Belle von Giro, but if we fail, then you Marines will be responsible for the rest. Ferry smiled and eased, said slowly. UB***************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** suspiciously. After a while, Cross snorted coldly, raised his legs and walked across the street. I saw him pretending to be a foreign tourist, casually came to the door of the clinic, pretending to be casual and touched the two stone statues of knights in front of the door. Suddenly, the glass door of the clinic was pushed open, and a mysterious man covered in a black robe came out, carrying a silver-gray suitcase in his hand. Do it. Across the street, Fei Li saw the mysterious man covered in black robe, and shouted without hesitation. Moonwalk. Immediately, Elmo took the sea-stone shackles, and Gadley rushed out from the alley, and jumped into the air, ignoring the pedestrians on the street. Sensing danger, the mysterious man in black robe immediately turned around and was about to return to the clinic behind him. However, at this moment, the two cold stone statues of knights at the entrance of the clinic moved, each stretched out a hand, and quickly pressed the shoulder of the mysterious man in black. What is this stuff? The mysterious man in black robe was taken aback. Just as he was about to resist forcefully, two stone swords were placed around his neck. The cold touch made his hairs stand up, and he couldn't help but give up resisting. Afterwards, Elmo and Gadley fell from the sky, and directly shackled the sea-stone shackles on the wrists of the mysterious man in black robe, without any unnecessary movements at all. Snapped. At the entrance of the alley, Fei Li was overjoyed, couldn't help but slapped his hands, and blurted out, "Perfect. Very perfect." Chapter 9 Justice is never an easy thing. Advertisement. Seeing that the target was subdued, Cross retracted the half-drawn Jingshou knife, then stepped forward quickly, and lifted the hood of the opponent's black robe. Sure enough, this face was exactly the same as the photo in the reward order, and the eyes were still indifferent, as if there was no emotion. A bounty of 375 million Baileys is offered, the polluter, Belle Von Giro, arrest you in the name of justice. Cross said in a deep voice. To be honest, Cross didn't expect things to go so smoothly at all. A big criminal with a bounty of more than 300 million yuan was caught so easily, and he couldn't believe it even went so smoothly. Ji Luo turned his head and looked around, his eyes stayed on Cross and the stone statue knights on both sides for a few seconds, and said slowly, "It actually made the stone statue move, almost thought it was homies made by Big Mom. It seems that the world government has really acquired a remarkable ability." At this time, Fei Li took 3 steps at a time, led several agents and ran over, stood in front of Belle Von Giro, and couldn't help but excitedly said, "You betrayed the world government, I didn't expect such a thing to happen. One day. The world government is doing business, arresting criminals, and it's all gone. The world government is doing business, arresting criminals, and it's all gone." Quote. At the same time, some CP agents ambushing around also came out one after another, waving their hands to drive away the crowd watching the excitement on the street. At this moment, Ji Luo stared at Fairy blankly, and said in a flat tone, "By the way, are you too happy too early?" "What's the meaning?" Cross frowned and asked in a concentrated voice. "I betrayed the world government, and I must have been hunted down by the agents of the CP organization, but I still evaded the hunt and stayed in the piercing pirates for several years." Jiro said with sarcasm, "You guys, when a group of agents are eyeing me, do you really think I don't know?" What? Immediately, everyone's expressions changed, and they couldn't help showing a shocked expression. "What are you doing?" Cross grabbed Jiro by the collar and asked angrily. "I originally had 5 AH-40 plague virus bombs left. After arriving at Carlo Carl Island yesterday, I made 8 more AH-40. Guess where I will put these cuties?" Ji Luo glanced at the few people present indifferently, and without waiting for anyone to speak, he replied on his own. "Sculpture City, the 6 most prosperous locations in Skokie. Each location has 2 AH-40. 10 minutes later, if my subordinates do not receive news of my safety, they will detonate immediately." Advertisement. Hole. Cross was furious, grabbed Jiro's neck with his hand suddenly, and asked angrily, "Tell me the location, or I'll break your neck." "Stop. Let go." Quote. Feli and other CP agents were shocked and hurried forward to stop them, for fear that Cross would really strangle him to death in a fit of anger. Fortunately, Cross didn't really want to strangle Belle Von Giro to death, but reluctantly let go of Belle Von Gyro's neck amidst the tugging of a group of people. Afterwards, Fairy looked into the eyes of Belle Von Gyro, and said in a deep and threatening voice, "You'd better tell the 6 places where AH-40 is hidden honestly, otherwise you will lack something on your body, and you will be killed. It's out of my control. Cough cough cough, instead of threatening me here, you might as well let me go." Miss G coughed a few times, stretched her neck, and said without changing expression, "As long as we leave Carlo Carl Island, I will naturally tell you. The task I received is to capture you alive, so no matter what, I can't let you go. If you continue to insist, I will have to let you try the methods of the CP organization." Fei Li said in a flat tone. "It doesn't matter. Many people from Sculpture City, Skokie buried me with me, it's worth it." Ji Luo tilted his head and said lightly. "Okay, just keep talking hard." Fei Li spread his hands, looked at Cross helplessly, and said, "Count Cross, we have a special torturer in our CP organization. I will bring Belle Von Gyro back, and I will definitely ask the 6 people who hid AH-40 place. Are you G kidding me?" Cross' face darkened, and he glared at Fairy angrily. "This guy actually treats himself like a child, as if I can't tell your intentions. The world government tried their best to capture Belle Von Gyro alive. The reason is that the other party has mastered a certain secret of the world government, or they have taken a fancy to the other party's scientific research ability and invention of plague virus weapons. Waiting for you group of CP agents to capture Belle Von Gyro after Feng Jiluo was taken away, how could he still take into account the people of Sculpture City, Skokie?" Seeing that Cross saw through his intentions, Fairy had no choice but to tear up his face and said directly, "I'm really sorry, Belle Von Gyro, we must arrest him. As for other things, it's none of our business." Thing. Kanglang. Advertisement. With a solemn expression, Cross pressed the handle of the knife with his right hand, slowly pulled out Jing Shu from his waist, and said seriously, "Mr. Feely, if he doesn't tell the 6 places where AH-40 is hidden, every after 1 minute, I will chop off a limb or organ on his body, and if AH-40 explodes in Sculpture City, Skokie, I will chop off his head." "No," Feely snapped. "The world government will never allow you to kill this man. It seems that you are not with this group of guys from the CP organization." Ji Luo chuckled lightly. "As long as you let me go, I promise to hide the 6 places of AH-40. Or, as long as you relax let me go, take me outside the city alone, and I'll tell you the location, how about it?" Another minute has passed. Cross had no expression on his face. He didn't listen to the words of the 2 people in front of him at all. He directly raised the Jingsho knife in his hand, and was about to cut off Belle Von Gyro's arm. This guy is too dangerous. Even if he has to sacrifice the lives of many innocent people, he must kill him at all costs. Otherwise, more innocent people will die in the hands of this man in the future. Although this is very unfair to those people who will die, there is no way around it. The world is inherently unfair. Cross also endured great psychological pressure when he made the choice to sacrifice a few people and save more people. As for letting Belle Von Gyro be taken away by these agents of the CP organization, he never considered it at all. He made a mistake and would have to pay it back sooner or later. At the same time, Cross sighed softly in his heart. Unexpectedly, I would encounter tram problem one day. At this moment, he really understood the meaning of the sentence, justice is never a simple matter. Stop. Gadley of CP9 stopped in front of Cross, lifted the hammer in his hand from his shoulder, and said with a serious expression, "Marines recruit, are you provoking the authority of the world government?" "Cha-cha-cha, brat, you are so arrogant." Elmo grinned, and slowly stretched out the index finger of his right hand. Cross looked at the CP9 agent who was close at hand, and said slowly, "If you want to stop me, try." Call out. Snapped. Suddenly, before Cross could finish his sentence, a red flare flew into the sky, interrupted his words with a screeching sound, and then exploded in the sky, forming a pattern of spikes piercing through a skull. Chapter 10 Gladiator, Ali Baka. Advertisement. What is that? No, it's the flag pattern of piercing pirates. What are those guys trying to do? The sudden signal flares attracted the attention of Cross, Fairy and others. Several agents of the CP organization put their hands in their arms and took out a short percussion pistol. At this time, Ji Luo said indifferently, "It seems that my subordinates are ready to act when they see that I have been arrested." "What does your subordinate want to do?" When Cross heard Ji Luo's words, he immediately set his eyes on the right person and asked angrily. "You still have one last chance, let me go, otherwise many people will die." Ji Luo said softly. "Don't even think about it." Before Cross could open his mouth, Fairy shouted in a deep voice, "Belle Von Gyro, you better give up your idle fantasies, we won't let you go. If someone in this city dies because of you, believe me, I will cut off your head with my own hands." With a cold face, Cross tightly held the Jingsho knife in his hand. Fei Li took a deep look at Cross, raised his hand, and said, "Take him away." Boom. However, just at this moment, Elmo was about to snatch Belle Von Gyro out from the hands of the 2 revived stone knights, when the wall beside him exploded, countless rubble shot out, and everyone was killed on the spot. Knock over several CP agents behind Fairy to the ground. At the same time, the strong wind spread, kicking up thick dust, covering everyone present. Woo quack quack quack, what a mess. Brother Jiro. A huge black shadow appeared in the diffuse smoke and dust, accompanied by insolent laughter and an extremely violent breath, a thick and muscular palm stretched out, and quickly grabbed the nearest Elmo. Who? Elmo's face changed slightly, and he raised his hand to make a finger pistol, and his slender index finger pierced towards the palm of the huge black shadow like a bullet. Snapped. As a result, in the next moment, Elmo's wrist was accurately grasped by the opponent's big hand, and then he pulled his arm and threw it directly to the outside. Nani. Elmo only felt an unrivaled force pulling him, and his body had no power to resist, so he flew up into the air involuntarily, flew across tens of meters in an instant, and crashed into a building across the street like a shell. Inside the house. Rumble. Amidst the continuous loud noises, the whole house collapsed directly, burying Elmo under the ruins, and once again set off a wave of dust and air that soared into the sky. Advertisement. At this time, 2 activated stone knights pulled Belle Von Gyro back quickly, trying to avoid the next danger. But the huge black shadow in the smoke and dust was coming towards Belle Von Gyro. A pair of muscular and thick palms stretched out like lightning, quickly and accurately grabbed the bodies of the 2 stone knights, and then with 5 fingers exerting strength, it actually crushed the stone knight. Damn it! Kadri cursed angrily, raised the hammer in his hand without hesitation, and threw it at Belle Von Gyro's shoulder. In his opinion, as long as he doesn't die, it doesn't matter if the mission target is seriously injured. Anyway, he can't let the other party escape. The hammer that contained great power hit a thick, furry arm, but it made a muffled sound, and was bounced back by the incomparably strong muscles, which almost made Gadley almost unable to hold the hammer in his hand. Joke. Gadley looked horrified, and couldn't stop taking 2 steps back. At this time, the huge human-shaped black shadow in the thick smoke and dust sneered mockingly, "Wooery." As soon as the words fell, that furry thick arm clenched its fist, and struck towards Gadley like lightning, and even the strong wind blown away the surrounding smoke and dust. Iron body. Kadri let out a low cry, his muscles tensed, and a gleam of light that was hard to see with the naked eye flashed quickly. Bang. In an instant, the casserole-sized fist hit Jadre's body heavily, arousing a circle of strong wind visible to the naked eye and spreading outward, and then saw Jadre's eyes turn white. Wow, haha. Blood spit out from the mouth and flew out like a cannonball. Call out. Bang. At this moment, Gadley turned into a black shadow, spanning dozens of meters in an instant, crashing into a house at the end of the street, setting off a cloud of smoke and dust. Godry. Fairy exclaimed in horror. Afterwards, everyone had a clear vision and saw a muscular man over 4 meters tall standing in Belle Von Gyro. His bare upper body was full of explosive muscular muscles, he was wearing red trousers, and there was a wrestling champion gold medal on his waist. A violent and terrifying evil spirit lingered around the belt, like a tide that was about to drown everyone. Gladiator. Ali Baka. In the next second, Faye's expression changed, and he screamed out the opponent's name. Woo quack quack. Baka patted Ji Luo's shoulder with a strange smile, and said in a low voice, "Brother Ji Luo, I still have to be in time." Advertisement. Thanks. Jiro frowned, thanked reluctantly, and then a thin wire appeared in his hand, and he inserted it into the keyhole of the seastone shackles and fiddled with it. After hearing Ji Luo's thanks, Baka showed a smug smile on his face, and said with a strange smile, "It's really rare to hear you say the word, thank you." Woo quack quack. Boom. Suddenly, there was a loud noise from the ruins of the house across the street, and a large number of wooden beams and stones were thrown away, and Elmo was seen standing up from the ruins covered in blood. Cha-cha-cha, you be asterisk 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 D pirate. Elmo roared angrily, his body suddenly swelled up, his head elongated forward, brown fur appeared on his skin, his hands and feet turned into horse-like hooves. 0. Oh, it's Zone's ability user. The smile on Baka's face became wider, as if he had seen something interesting. If I'm not wrong, it should be Zone Mama Fruit Horse form. Ji Luo looked up and said in a flat tone. Die. At this time, Elmo in human beast form gritted his teeth, directly cast Moonwalk to fly into the air, kicked the one below with all his strength, and sent out a straight and sharp slash. Bang. All of a sudden, Bakura pulled Ji Luo away quickly, and a deep crack several meters long was chopped out on the spot. 6 styles, it's not an interesting thing either. A smirk appeared on Baka's face, he jumped up suddenly, his body rushed out like a cannonball, and rushed to Elmo in midair almost instantly. Nani. Get out of here. Elmo's complexion changed drastically, and before he had time to react, Baka grabbed his right arm and threw it downwards forcefully. Call out. Bang. Amid the piercing whistling sound, Elmo instantly turned into a black shadow and slammed into the street below, knocking out a large crater with a diameter of several meters on the spot, setting off violent air waves and dust. How is this possible? Feli's eyes were about to burst, and he saw Elmo's eyes turned white in the big pit, most of his body was buried in the rubble, and he gradually regained his human form. He couldn't believe what he saw. 2 top agents of CP9 are so vulnerable, is today April Fool's Day? And Chapter 11 Amphitheater Cross vs. Ali Baka. Advertisement. It's so strong. It's overwhelming power. At this time, seeing the 2 CP9 agents being defeated in a snap, Cross was surprised and couldn't help but let out a gasp. Farah's face was ugly, and he couldn't help but growled at Cross. Count Cross, you understand the importance of Belle Von Gyro, you must not let him be rescued by the cadres of the pierced pirates. Stop rambling, of course I know. Cross said with a cold face, annoyed, if you had let me chop off one of his arms or legs, he wouldn't have escaped so easily even if he was saved. Hearing Cross's complaints and displeasure, Feli was quite embarrassed, startled and angry in his heart, so he could only lower his face and say, it's all for justice, and please, Earl Cross, stop Ali Baka. A brat actually came to stop me. Is there no one in the world government? Baka looked at Cross's immature, 677, face, and couldn't help mocking. Suddenly, Ji Luo, who was tinkering with the seastone shackles, raised his head, glanced at Cross, and said in a flat tone, "Be careful, this kid is marine, with extraordinary abilities, he can revive sculptures and statues on the street, similar to big homies under mom." After hearing Ji Luo's words, Baka stared at the bullseye big eyeballs, bloodshot inside, and said angrily, "What an annoying ability, I'm going to crush this brat to death." "Stop bragging, you're just a bunch of frightened and terrified dogs," Cross sarcastically said with a slightly cold face. "You wanna die." Baka was furious instantly. Like a violent bull when he saw the red cloth, he stepped forward a few meters and punched Cross on the head with his casserole-sized fist. In an instant, the strong fist wind howled, blowing away the dust on both sides unexpectedly. Cross nimbly dodged sideways, and the Jingsho knife in his hand drew a semicircle, and then cut towards the opponent's wrist. Armed color hardening, Baka let out a low cry, and quickly coated his right arm with a layer of jet black from below the elbow, giving off a metallic luster, and without hesitation grabbed the part of the Jingsho knife with his palm blade. Scandium. There was a sound of metal and iron clanging, and sparks flew out in the air. However, with the sharpness of open black lens bracket Jingsho close black lens bracket knife, there is no way to cut the right finger. Damn, it's hockey again. Advertisement. Seeing this scene, Cross cursed angrily, and wanted to withdraw the Jingsho knife, but found that the blade was held tightly by the opponent, and he couldn't pull it out at all, so he took the initiative to step forward, raising his leg with force. The heavy whip kicked Baka's arm. There was only a muffled sound of bang, and the strong wind spread. Baka's eyes were fixed, and he felt a huge shock in his arm, and a powerful force that surprised him came, shaking his palm away. This brat has so much strength. Baka frowned slightly, looked at Cross with a serious look, and moved his numb arm. Cross also looked at Ali Baka in front of him, and said without turning his head, "Mr. Feli, the two main cadres of the piercing pirates are here, hurry up and inform Pelusolino Vice Admiral and Kuzan Vice Admiral, the battle can begin." Bang! Suddenly, the heavy seastone shackles fell to the ground, cracking the bluestone slabs on the ground with several cracks. Jiro rubbed his sore wrist expressionlessly, and said in a deep voice, "Baka, get rid of this brat as soon as possible. If he activates all the sculptures and statues in Sculpture City, Skokine, we will be very happy. It's hard to retreat. Don't worry, it will be soon." Baka glared at Cross viciously, with a bit of sternness in his tone, and said, "Little brat, wait for me to crush every bone in your body." As soon as the words fell, Baka stepped forward suddenly, like an elephant caught in a frenzy, clenched his fists with both hands, and hammered at the Cross wolf. "It looks like you want to smash me to death instead of crushing my bones." Cross muttered, quickly backed away to avoid it, and did not confront him head on. This guy has lumps of muscles, and his physical fitness is terrifying. Armament hockey's strength is probably much stronger than Doflamingo's. As one of Conqueror's hockey, armament hockey can effectively enhance personal defense, acting like invisible armor, and can also evolve into attack power to increase lethality. Back in the Kingdom of Lubni, when Cross fought Doflamingo, he couldn't break through the opponent's armament hockey, and he couldn't use his body to block the cutting of the sharp thin line, so he was always at a disadvantage and could only be beaten passively. Because, when Cross confronts such an opponent, it is no different from an ordinary soldier holding a long knife against a heavy infantry wearing full plate armor, especially the opponent's flexibility is not bad, and your long knife there is no way to break the defense, which is very tricky. Seeing that Cross didn't fight against him, Baka didn't feel surprised. He swung his pair of iron fists more forcefully, and even stirred up the surrounding air, forming a powerful fist wind that was hunting and howling, trying to beat Cross to death. "Little ghost, don't hide if you have the ability, give me a punch." Advertisement. "Idiot, let me tell you what I can do. UB******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************* Stop bragging about it. Among the shadows of fists all over the sky, Cross was like an acrobat walking on a wire, his body fluttering with the wind, always dodging Baka's iron fist at the nick of time. This is paper arts in 6 styles. Fairy and the other agents were dumbfounded. In their view, although Cross's evasion methods are not all similar, they do have traces of paper arts. But the question is, where did this kid learn the 6 styles? At this time, Cross also understood the principle of long-term defense is bound to lose, so he found a flaw in the opponent's punching, and the Jingsho knife in his hand instantly slashed out. The sharp light of the knife suddenly appeared, and the shadows of the fists all over the sky dissipated immediately, and the sharp long knife like a lion majesty directly slashed at Baka's chest, but his chest was already covered by armament hockey. A large piece of pitch-black metallic luster was formed, and the sharp blade slashed across like lightning, but a series of sparks were produced by the rubbing of C-Dow 4.6. IDFK. Cross almost yelled, but his body quickly backed away extremely honestly. Woo quack quack quack. Baka patted his chest indifferently, laughed viciously, and then waved his thick, muscular and strong arms, brazenly punching Cross. The strong fist wind howled, and the casserole-sized fist hit like a pitch-black hammer, which changed the expression of Cross who was retreating, and quickly put the Jingsho knife in his hand in front of him, allowing the opponent to punch it. Clang. Amidst the ear-piercing loud noise, a circle of surging air waves exploded, roaring and spreading in all directions, kicking up bursts of dust. At this moment, the long knife in Cross's hand vibrated violently, and almost fell out of his hand. The powerful force pushed his body even more, causing him to fly upside down. Chapter 12 Activated Legion. Advertisement. Die, brat. Woo quack quack quack. Baka stepped forward with a strange smile, chasing after Cross with agility and super fast speed that didn't match his huge body. At this moment, many sculptures and statues on both sides of the street started to move. Some human statues like knights and warriors raised their weapons high, and then threw them at Ali Baka, who was running wildly. Out. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Amid the continuous sound of piercing through the air, 7 or 8 stone spears, stone swords, stone axes and other weapons flew over and smashed heavily on Ali Baka's body. As a result, there was a muffled, bang bang, sound as if a stone hit the tough cowhide. The onlookers only saw that the stone weapons were shattered, but they failed to hurt Baka in the slightest. Fortunately, the activated human statues are very powerful, and the thrown weapons also contain great power. The sudden reason above caused Baka to stop his pursuit. As early as 2 days ago, Cross visited the entire city of sculpture, Skokie, and touched all the sculptures and statues he saw, so he could put those touched sculptures and statues together in one thought. The statues are animated. At this moment, Cross fell from midair and stood in the middle of the street, directing the activated sculptures and statues on the street to surround and return. Fight for the Lord. Kill, 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 roar. Knights, warriors, beasts, giant eagles. Dozens of hundreds of sculptures and statues have gained life and moved like ordinary people, some of which are made of stone and metal. My work lives. Am I dazzled? Longevity. See the undead. The scene of this scene aroused the panic and curiosity of countless people on this street. Seeing this scene, Ollie Barker and Belle Von Gyro's expressions changed slightly, as if recalling some bad experiences of being saved. Ji Luo looked around and shouted in a heavy tone, "Retreat, there is no chance." At this time, Baka's eyes were covered with bloodshot eyes, and his terrifying aura erupted like a volcano. He said sharply, "Wait a little longer, I'll finish him off in one go." Boom. In the next second, the bluestone slab on the ground under Baka's feet was suddenly crushed by a huge force, forming a large crack like a spider web. The huge body rushed out like a giant shell, and unexpectedly set off a violent gust of wind out of thin air. It roared and spread in all directions. Advertisement. So fast. Cross only felt a flash in front of his eyes, and the other party had already come in front of him, and the terrifying evil spirit rushed in like a tide, which almost made him stop breathing. Be careful. Seeing this scene with a face full of horror, Fei Li couldn't help but blurt it out. Muscle cannon. It was too late to say, but soon, Ali Baka let out a growling growl, and his furry right arm suddenly swelled, almost as thick as an elephant's leg, and its terrifying muscles and tendons were like horned dragons. Like bulging, he punched out brazenly. This punch was as powerful as fire and as thunderous, it was as violent as a shell fired from the largest caliber fortress gun. Damn it, I can't hide. Cross's eyes were about to split open, seeing the opponent's fist continuously enlarged in his eyes, the fierce wind of the fist blowing towards his face, even made his cheek hurt like a knife cut. Because he felt that the air around him was completely disordered, and even squeezed his body to a certain extent, so that even if he wanted to escape, his speed would be greatly reduced, and he couldn't escape the opponent's attack range at all. Since you can't hide, let's fight head on. In an instant, Cross looked solemn, holding the handle of the famous sword, Jingsho, with both hands, gathering all the strength of his body, and slashed out without fancy. The simplest straight cut in kendo is called tangju. One sword style, tiangong. With the swing of the Jingsho knife, the terrifying power set off a white mist visible to the naked eye, as if a faint white light lingered on the blade, unexpectedly compressing the invisible air into a form visible to the naked eye. Bang! The fist and the knife collided, and there was a dull thunderous noise, which shook the air within 100 meters. In the next second, with Cross and Ali Baka at the center, the terrifying power erupted unscrupulously outwards, and a large crater was sunken downwards out of thin air on the ground of the street, and white air waves visible to the naked eye suddenly burst out. On the spot turned into a bitter storm swept the sky and the earth. The ground shook violently in the rumbling, and the houses and buildings on both sides of the street were crumbling in the violent wind. Not to mention all the glass was shattered, and the brick roofs of many buildings were thrown off. Quote. Is this guy really only 15? Are these two monsters? Advertisement. Countless people looked horrified, and even screamed in horror. Some CP agents who were closer were blown away by the violent air waves. After a while, both Ali Baka and Cross were shocked by the opponent's strength, and they backed up a few steps involuntarily. This is impossible. Baka was furious, and his bloodshot eyes were full of disbelief. Nothing is impossible, stupid thing. Cross looked ferocious, but he cursed viciously without showing any weakness. You wanna die. Like an enraged bull, Baka roared with rage, and stepped forward again, wanting to kill Cross. However, Cross didn't continue to resist it, instead squatted down, pressed one hand on the ground, and shouted, "Activation Inorganic Reincarnation." Rumble. Immediately, the ground in front of Cross 687 surged up, forming earth and rock tentacles that fused bluestone slabs, rock fragments, and dark brown soil one after another, and Oli Baka was caught off guard and flew out directly with his teeth and claws. What is this stuff? Belle Von Gyro, who was watching the battle from the sidelines, was a little surprised. Are these tentacles also the opponent's devil fruit ability? Roar. Suddenly, a lion's roar came. Ji Luo's face changed slightly, and he saw a majestic stone lion rushing towards him, making him dodge quickly, and a large scalpel appeared in his palm at the same time. Laugh. The next moment, a bright white light flashed across the air, and the stone lion cut off its head just as it turned around. Only then did Ji Luo notice the surroundings, and he was surrounded by a group of animated sculptures and statues. Go away. Not far away, Ali Baka got up from the ground with an angry expression, his hands were like heavy hammers, and he smashed several stone knights around him into a pile of rubble with 2 or 3 blows. Activate the Legion, go to battle. Cross shouted in a deep voice, and more animated sculptures and statues surrounded him, such as knights and warriors holding weapons, or majestic beasts and birds, and even legends such as gargoyles and griffins. In the monster. Baka and Jiro didn't expect, and didn't notice for a while, that this street was surrounded by countless activated creatures. Chapter 13 The battle begins. Advertisement. Bang, 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 bang. Suddenly, fierce gunshots sounded like fried beans, and a large number of lead bullets flew around, smashing the bodies of many stone living creatures into stone chips. Those are also members of the piercing pirates. Cross looked coldly, and found that the people shooting around were a group of fierce-looking guys, wearing various colors and types of clothing. They should be the pirates from the piercing pirates who came to meet Belle Von Gyro. Count Cross, hurry up and revive all the sculptures and statues in the city, and you must catch that guy. Fairy trotted over, repeating with an emphatic tone. To shut up. Cross scolded in displeasure. Now it's time for marine battles, you guys stop talking. Then, his face was a bit ugly, and he said angrily, besides, Sculpture City, Skokie has been reduced to a battlefield, all because of you. Being scolded by an underage kid, Fei Li's expression was also very bad, and he suppressed his anger and said, you Marine also agree with the arrest of Belle Von Gyro, don't blame us all. Quote. If you hadn't insisted on arresting Belle Von Gyro, according to Marine's plan, the battlefield should be in a no-man's land outside the city, not inside the city. Cross said angrily. Start the war inside the densely populated city. The casualties caused in the end were much heavier than the casualties caused by the explosion of 12 open black lens bracket off 40 plague virus bombs 3 close black lens bracket. You and I. Fairy blushed and was quite out of breath. Open black lens bracket city of sculpture close black lens bracket Skokie port. Buzz. The members of the piercing pirates were found in the city, and the siege began. The target is on the 13th Street, the combat troops rushed to it immediately. Rockets, mortars, sea stone nets, all weapons, quick, 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 don't fall behind, follow me. The ear-piercing siren sounded suddenly, spreading almost throughout the port. The 6 warships moored in the bay were like boiling water, and a large number of sailors quickly rushed onto the deck and entered a combat state. Pass my order, all soldiers and officers gather immediately. Backquote. Standing on the bow deck of a huge warship, Kuzan gave orders loudly, Stalo Berry Rear Admiral. Fire Mountain Rear Admiral, you two lead the soldiers of the headquarters to 13th Street immediately. Advertisement. Kadalu Rear Admiral, Cancer Commodore, you two lead the soldiers of the headquarters to immediately block all the main streets of Skokie. Mozambique Rear Admiral, Bastiu Commodore, the 2 of you led the soldiers of the headquarters as a reserve force. Once you find the main force of the piercing pirates, go to battle immediately. Asterisk 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 asterisk. Yes, Lord Vice Admiral. More than 20 Marine generals responded in unison, and the sound shook the whole field. Afterwards, the Marine generals who received the order quickly returned to the warships they were on, and each led their troops to land at the port and head towards the target location in the city. At the same time, in Sculpture City, Skokie, many patrolling sailors on various streets also received news one after another, and gathered towards No. 13th Street one after another. On a certain street, Pelusaruno hung up the phone, and said slowly to himself, the 13th Street. I didn't expect that the little cross had already fought against the enemy, and the opponent was still like Ali Baka. What a terrifying monster. The next moment, he put his hands in front of his chest, accumulating a piece of mirror-like light in his hands, and then shot out a beam of light, which quickly refracted and rebounded to the surrounding targets, forming a light track. Yada mirror. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, boom, boom. Hurry up and shoot more shots. Idiot, don't attack the body, it's hard to kill like that. Bazooka. Fire at that golem. At the same time, on the No 13th Street of Sculpture City, Skokie, the sound of fierce guns and guns kept ringing. The members of the pirate group are fighting. However, there are too many resurrected sculptures and statues, and activated creatures from other places continue to rush to No. 13th Street, forming a large number of activated legions, almost blocking the entire street. In the eyes of onlookers, these revived sculptures and statues are like fearless warriors, one by one fearless and continuously attacking the members of the piercing pirates. 1 dies, and 2 more. 2 died, and 10 more. It doesn't stop until the enemy in front of it is wiped out. Damn it, it's even more troublesome than the homies legion under that old woman in Big Mom. Belle's expression was gloomy, and the large scalpel in his hand continuously cut out cold rays, like a hot knife cutting butter. One after another stone knights and stone beasts were dismembered into pieces. Advertisement. Wow. Suddenly, a human-shaped metal sculpture came striding forward, screaming strangely, holding a metal spear, making a clang 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 sound when the metal hit the ground when running. It was clearly a metal sculpture in the shape of a king. Boom. Jiro quickly dodged sideways, and a metal spear passed by, piercing a hole in the red brick wall behind him. In the next second, a sharp cold light flashed in the air. Ji Luo waved the large scalpel in his hand and quickly slashed across the neck of the metal native, but rubbed a series of sparks, leaving only a deep cut. Nani? Ji Luo looked surprised and stepped back quickly. Wow. At this time, the metal native screamed strangely, and immediately let go of his hand. Without pulling out the metal spear stuck on the wall, he directly punched Jiro. Damn it! Get the hell out of here! Boom! There was a loud shout, like thunder in spring. I saw Alibaka rushing towards him like a gust of wind. With an angry look on his face, he punched brazenly, and slammed his fist hard on the metal native, sending the latter flying dozens of meters away on the spot, crashing into the in a private house. Dozens of activated stone statues were crashed along the way, causing a burst of thick smoke and dust. With Baka's cover, Ji Luo and Baka were in the wave of the activated army, like a rock facing the tide, standing still under the siege of countless activated creatures. However, the pirates who came to support in 4 weeks died one after another, and the number continued to drop sharply. Baka, we have to break out. When the main force of Marine arrives, we really won't be able to leave. Jiro retreated behind Baka, and said in a somewhat hasty tone. Hateful. Baka raised his head angrily, looked at Cross who was under heavy protection not far away, cursed unwillingly, then reached out and grabbed Ji Luo's shoulder, and shouted. I'll retreat. Boom. The next moment, his legs bent, he jumped up suddenly, like a shell flying to a height of tens of meters, directly crossed this street, and fell towards another street, leaving only a pair of deep footprints on the spot and a spider web of cracks. No, this guy is going to escape. Fairy screamed. Chapter 14 Plague Virus Bomb. Advertisement. FK. Is this guy the Hulk? Seeing this scene, Cross's eyes widened in shock, the eyeballs almost protruding from their sockets. Such an amazing jumping ability, with a leap of tens of meters, is comparable to the green fat man in the reunion. Call out. But at the critical moment, the dazzling light bloomed, almost overshadowing the sun's light. Countless people saw a golden laser light flashing across the sky like a meteor, piercing Ali Baka's body instantly. Ali Baka screamed in pain, fell directly from a height of tens of meters, and smashed heavily into a small 3-story building, making a loud bang, setting off a strong wave of air and heavy smoke and dust. What a terrible monster, almost let them run away. On the roof of a small 2-story building, countless shining light particles gathered and quickly formed a human form, turning into a middle-aged man with a slightly wretched face, with a lit cigarette in his mouth. It turned out that Pelusolino arrived at the critical moment and wounded Ali Baka with one blow, preventing the opponent from fleeing. Seeing that Ali Baka was blocked, Cross, Fairy and the others breathed a sigh of relief, and couldn't help wiping the sweat off their foreheads. It was the first time to fight against the new world's famous big pirate, which was also a great challenge for Cross, especially 967. The opponent's strength was not inferior to Doflamingo, who was still in North Blue, and even stronger in some aspects. Be stronger. If he continues to fight, he has already made a desperate plan. Then, Cross took a step forward and shouted to Pelusolino on the top of the small 2-story building. Vice Admiral, Gladiator, Ali Baka and Polluter, Bell Von Gyro, they are all here, and they seem to have hidden 12 AH-40 plague virus bombs in 6 places in the city. Pelusolino said in a surprised tone. It's really horrible to hide such a dangerous thing in the city. Boom, 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 boom. Before Pelusolino could finish his sentence, there was a continuous sound of muffled thunderous bangs, and cloud after cloud of dark red smoke erupted in many places in Sculpture City, Skokie. From Julong Square, Master Street, and No. 3rd Street, a total of 6 places, 12 strands of dark red smoke rose, all of which enveloped the crowd within a radius of 10 meters. Advertisement. What is this? Poisonous. Poisonous. Get out of the way. Don't come close. Quote. Hundreds of civilians inhaled the dark red plague poisonous mist, and the skin all over their bodies quickly became red, swollen and festered, and then they fell to the ground in agony like a fire. Then, chaos ensues. Half of the city, hundreds of thousands of people fell into chaos. The streets and alleys were full of terrified men, women and children, screaming constantly, and almost every moment someone fell to the ground, and then was trampled to death by the crowd behind, and there was a tragic trampling. Finally, the plan to impale the pirates has succeeded. Hey, what a headache. Facing the innocent people all over the street, Pelusolino, adhering to the ambiguous justice, scratched his head. After all, he didn't make a move. Watching the wounded Ali Baka and Bell Von Gyro mixed in with distressed expressions, the chaotic crowd disappeared into the vast sea of people. If it were another colleague of Pelusolino, such as the Sakazuki who pursued total justice, he might have shot directly at the crowd. At the same time, the other pirates who pierced the pirate group also threw away their long weapons one after another, pretending to be ordinary people and fleeing around, mixing into the crowd, which immediately made the soldiers of the activated legion lose their target. After all, their intelligence is limited, and they are more like biological robots that have been programmed in advance. It is really impossible to distinguish the difference between innocent people and enemies. Damn it, hurry up. Fairy shouted to Pelusolino and Cross again and again, angrily. Bell Von Gyro must not be allowed to escape. He must be arrested. There is nothing worse than this. There's a better chance. Shut up. Cross's face was gloomy. He didn't get angry. He directly grabbed Fairy by the collar, and cursed. You Becca B asterisk 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 D. Things have developed to such an extent. I have nothing to do with you. Get the hell out of here now. I don't have the time to talk nonsense with you. After finishing speaking, he threw Fairy aside, jumped straight up, and performed moonwalk to fly into the air under Feli's astonished eyes, as if stepping on an invisible ladder, and soon came to Pelusolino's side. Advertisement. It's really strange, you actually learned moonwalk. Pelusolino said in surprise. It's not too difficult a skill to learn after watching it twice. Cross casually said a word, then got to the point, and continued. Vice Admiral, please hurry up and maintain order in the Marines in the city, otherwise more casualties will be caused. As for the escaped piercing pirates, I will leave the flying living creatures go out of the city, search for their traces from the air, and contact Vice Admiral if necessary. Please support me quickly. Call. After listening to Cross's words, Pelusolino breathed out a puff of smoke ring with a calm expression, and said slowly, it's a good remedial plan, then I will authorize you, and I will leave everything to you. If you encounter a puncture the main force of the pirate group, please contact me as soon as possible, I will rush over as soon as possible. As you order, Pelusolino Vice Admiral. Victory for justice. For justice. Cross paid a military salute to Pelusolino, who rarely returned a serious military salute. Roar. The next moment, there was a dull roar of a huge beast from the sky. Like many others, Pelusolino looked up with a puzzled expression, and saw a black dragon with a body length of about 20 meters flying over the city, flapping its huge bat-like wings, its huge body in the sunlight. Under the light, there is a metallic luster, and the end is majestic and majestic. Dragon. It's the sculpture on the square. Pelusolino muttered. It's a dragon. The dragon is coming. Just kidding. That kind of creature should be a legend, it doesn't exist in reality. I saw that the black dragon sculpture on the dragon square was resurrected. Countless people were stunned, and even their views exploded. They couldn't believe that a creature that only existed in legends would actually appear in reality. Afterwards, Cross didn't talk too much, and jumped several meters high, and the black dragon in the sky also flew down, caught Cross with his back, and then quickly raised himself up, drawing a perfect arc in the air, heading straight towards Fly in the direction outside the city. At the same time, among the various sculptures and statues resurrected in Sculpture City, Skokie, flying creatures such as birds, eagles, giant sculptures, gargoyles, and griffins are all flying into the sky followed closely behind the huge black dragon, forming a large-scale air army, almost like a dark cloud. Looking at the scene in front of him, Pelusolino couldn't help but secretly stunned. Young people nowadays are just like monsters, it's really scary. Chapter 15 Appearance. The Impaler, Vlad Aren. Advertisement. Scatter all, focus on the intersection leading to the outside of the city. Cross sat on the back of the metal black dragon with a serious expression, letting the hunting wind howl to blow the coat on his body, and gave orders to the activated creatures behind him in a deep voice. Juju. Quote. Roar. Hundreds of activated birds seemed to understand it, and they screamed one after another, and then quickly flapped their wings, scattered in all directions, and flew towards other directions of the Sculpture City, Sigauji. If it is seen by people in the city hundreds of meters below, they will only think that this dark cloud has turned into countless birds of different sizes and dispersed. However, these resurrected sculptures and statues all have the attribute of alive, like some kind of strange life forms, all possessing simple wisdom. As long as the creator Cross does not release his ability, they can continue to live forever, just like a brand new race. At most it just doesn't have the ability to reproduce. After searching for a while, and patrolling outside the city, with a wide view of the air superiority, Cross's sharp gaze quickly locked on a sparse forest outside the city. I could only see more than a dozen people running fast in the woods with sparse trees. Among them, a tall and strong man stood out the most. Unique characteristics and violent breath. Mada, somehow, hid the golden belt of the gladiatorial champion around his waist, and under the sunlight, a ray of light was reflected and shone on his face. Gladiator champions are amazing. Fight your gladiatorial champion today. However, Cross did not shoot blindly, but just followed the opponent in the air, intending to find the other people who pierced the pirates, and then notify Marine to come over and completely encircle them on Carlo Carl Island. Not good. Suddenly, Cross' face changed slightly. Observation Hockey sensed the danger, and quickly controlled the sitting black dragon to turn to the direction of flight and increase the flight altitude. In the next second, a spear struck from below like a black lightning, brushing against the black dragon's wings and passing by at a high speed. Wrapped in a violent wind, it disappeared into the clouds thousands of meters high almost instantly. Advertisement. Then, a loud rumbling sound like thunder came to Cross's ears. Obviously, the flying speed of that spear has exceeded the propagation speed of sound, and its power can be imagined. Even if the black dragon with a full metal body is hit, it will be torn apart on the spot. The black dragon flapped its wings, and after controlling its figure, Cross, who was sitting on his back, poked his head out and looked down. He saw a dozen men with weapons standing on the top of a small hill behind the sparse forest. There are cold weapons such as swords and hot weapons such as guns. Even on the back of the hillside, hundreds of people actually gathered there. Among them, a middle-aged man with a golden crown on the top of the hill is the most conspicuous, with a large crimson cloak fluttering in the wind behind him. Obviously, he is very different from other people in terms of clothing and demeanor. To put it in more detail, it is because of the style of painting. This person's style of painting is obviously different from other people's. Even the big bosses are sorry for his dressing and style of painting. That guy is the Impaler, Vlad Aren. Cross's face was slightly condensed, and he recognized the man's identity at a glance. He was the captain of the Piercing Pirates, a big pirate with a bounty of 762 million berry. Then, Cross saw that on the dirt slope below, Gladiator took another spear from the subordinate beside him, weighed it in his hand, and started aiming at himself. Even though they were nearly 1,000 meters away, Cross still felt a strong palpitation. He was so frightened that he hurriedly let the black dragon that was sitting down fly higher again, turned around, and flew back directly. As the opponent's subordinate gladiator, Ali Baka, Cross is not an opponent, let alone coming in person. It is better to slip away first as a respect and from the heart. You know, it's not like he doesn't have a backstage, waiting for Lousy to go back and shake people. Whoops, 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 whoops. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, there was a sharp piercing sound, and the sound was dense, as if many things were flying at high speed. A few seconds later, a series of violent explosions occurred in the sparsely wooded forest below. Surging air waves rang out, mixed with rising hot flames, blowing down the trees one by one, countless pieces of wood flying everywhere. For a moment, the sea of flames surged, and violent air waves rolled up, allowing Cross, who was nearly 1,000 meters in the air, to feel the energy of the air waves. Quote question mark exclamation mark quote. Advertisement. Cross was a little dazed, and quickly stopped the sitting black dragon from returning, and hovered in the air, while he looked around, trying to find the source of the shelling. Asking for flowers. He looked in the direction of the sound of the cannon, and there was a pothole with a complex environment several hundred meters away from the forest, in which thousands of sailors and dozens of cannons were actually hidden. These sailors and artillery were scattered in one after another large and small depressions. The specialized artillery kept loading the artillery shells one by one, and then vigorously fired towards the direction of the woods, and extended the artillery fire to the people behind the woods. The hillside was covered by artillery fire. The most important thing is that these Marines are not using solid shells, but a kind of impact-type explosive shells. Although the shells are also round, they will explode as soon as they fall from the air. They are powerful. They are the Marines of the Grand Line. Special shells. If it is in the world, most kingdoms and various marine branches use a mixture of solid bombs and explosive bombs, and only a few powerful countries have completely eliminated the use of solid bombs. Shortly thereafter, after several rounds of shelling by Marine, the shelling ceased. And the forest with sparse trees and the half-green and half-yellow hillside have completely turned into a ruined area filled with gunpowder and raging fire. Only a few trees escaped the shelling by chance, lonely standing amidst the ruins full of bomb craters. Come on. Marine must win. For justice. Immediately afterwards, other sailors hidden in various pits stood up one after another, each took out their own weapons, and led by an officer, shouted and launched a charge. First there were a few waves of sudden bombardment covering the attack, and then the infantry charge. It seems that the tactical literacy of these sea soldiers is quite good. At least as far as the army of the Kingdom of Tobias is concerned, it is impossible to achieve such precise artillery coverage and skillful artillery extension. Even the momentum of the infantry charging is not as good as the Marine in front of them. Seeing this scene, Cross drove the black dragon back, hovered over the battlefield, and took out a blue Baishiang Marine special phone bug, and dialed Pelusalino. Moshi Moxie. Poor Salino Vice Admiral, we have found the main force of the pirates. That's right, Rad Aren also showed up. Chapter 16 Marine vs. Piercing Pirates. Advertisement. Kill, FKU to death. Die, you wretched sailor. Go to hell, you wicked pirate. In the ruins of the forest filled with gunpowder smoke and full of bomb craters, raging fires burned on the fallen trees, making a crackling sound. After several rounds of shelling, the piercing pirates suffered heavy losses, and many of the survivors were injured. Unfortunately, they had no way out and could only fight Marine to the death. The two sides fought fiercely, lead bullets of various calibers splashed everywhere, and more people took up their swords and fought together. For a while, blood flowed all over the ground, full of mutilated corpses or wailing wounded. Anesthesia, anesthesia, anesthesia. Bell von Gyro moved nimbly among the many sailors, and kept patting each of them with his hands. 507. Then saw that those sailors who were slapped by Jiro's hand soon felt numb and lost control of their bodies like bone nomi cards and fell to the ground one after another. Bell von Gyro, let me arrest you in the name of justice. At this time, an angry Marine general rushed over, holding a taidao, and met Ji Luo, who was rampant. This person is slightly fat, with a scar on his face, wearing a gray suit and a Marine justice coat. It is Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral Mozambia. Here comes a troublesome guy. Ji Luo frowned slightly, and silently took out a large scalpel in his hand, and slashed at Mozambique's neck like lightning. Mozambique is Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral at any rate. It happened to stop and avoid Jiro's scalpel. Then he raised the taidao in his hand and chopped out. Jiro in front of Lien had to step back. Immediately, Mozambia continued to swing the knife and attack Ji Luo continuously, causing the latter, who was not good at confrontation, to retreat again and again. Muscle cannon. At the same time, Ali Baka on the other side was like a berserk behemoth, punching out with a punch, like a large caliber shell exploding, setting off a violent air wave visible to the naked eye on the spot, blowing everyone within a radius of more than 10 meters away. The sea soldiers all flew out together. After a while, the surrounding ground was covered with the corpses of Marine soldiers. Let's stop here. Let me, Shark Slayer, Bastiu come to meet you for a while, and offer a bounty of 588 million Bailey, Gladiator, O Baka. A tall Marine general rushed over, with reddish-brown hair, wearing a horn mask with many holes, waving a long-handled saw blade, and aggressively slashed at Ali Baka, who was killing all directions cut away. Advertisement. Shark Slayer. Never heard of it. With a ferocious face, Baka glared at the visitor coldly, then stood where he was, and directly stretched out a thick left arm to block in front of him. Clang. In the next second, the powerful shark-slaying knife slashed on Baka's arm, making a sound like the clanging of golden iron, which aroused a gust of wind that spread around. However, Baka didn't take a step back, but the ground under his feet was shattered by a powerful force, forming a spider web-like crack. Nani? Bastio yelled in surprise. Is this the strength? Baka snorted, shook Bastia's shark-slaying knife away with one hand, and immediately rushed forward, hitting Bastia's chest with a fast and wolf-heavy punch. Bang! Bang! The strong wind visible to the naked eye swept in all directions, and Bastio vomited blood on the spot and flew backwards, falling heavily dozens of meters away, smashing a scorched tree trunk into 2 pieces. Bastio Commodore. Killed Lord Commodore in 1 blow. Are you kidding me? Is this the power of the great pirate who offered a bounty of 588 million Baileys? What a monster! The surrounding sailors were terrified, and the timid ones were even frightened by Baka's violent aura, and couldn't help but knelt down on the ground. The monster-like terrifying power was vividly displayed at this moment. There was no single sailor who was an enemy of Ali Baka. Whether it was an elite sailor troop of hundreds of people or the Commodore of Naval Headquarters, they were all defeated by him. It was easily defeated. Allah, I can't let you go so easily if I attack my subordinates. Frozen time capsule. At this moment, Kuzan strolled over, raised his hand and released a burst of strong freezing air, which quickly cooled the hot and dry air around him, and left a long road covered with icicles on the ground. And a dozen meters away, Ali Baka was frozen, forming a lifelike white ice sculpture, exuding a whiff of white chill. This time, it was the turn of the piercing pirates to be frightened. The majestic battle captain, even in the monster-filled new world, is also a man with a reputation for viciousness. He was frozen into ice sculptures just by meeting. It's probably too exaggerated. Advertisement. At the same time, Marine's morale, which had dropped, quickly picked up again. Ice saber. Kuzan stretched lazily, then bent down and pulled up a few dead grasses from the ground and threw them into the air, and then blew out a breath of cold air from his mouth, instantly freezing the few dry grasses in midair, forming long skates. Although I'm very embarrassed, it's better for you to die here. Kuzan said embarrassingly, but he held a long ice knife in his hand, and was about to chop off Baka, who had turned into an ice sculpture. Sea soldier, what have you done to my men? Suddenly, an angry roar could almost sway over the entire battlefield. Kuzan turned around and saw Vlad Aren rushing towards him, with a crimson cloak fluttering in the wind on his back, rushing towards him like lightning. Thorns and thorns. As soon as it was said, Yulin's hands turned into long dark brown spikes, stabbing forward like sharp spears. Scandium. Kuzan hastily raised the ice blade in his hand to block, holding the 2 hands that turned into long spikes, and a gust of strong wind visible to the naked eye was stirred up between the collisions, and it roared outwards. But then, Aren raised his right leg again, with spikes growing on his foot, and swept towards Kuzan's waist. It has to be said that this kick is not easy to block, and if one is not careful, a bloody hole will be pierced. Therefore, Kuzan didn't resist hard, and jumped back directly, avoiding the opponent's leg sweep. The thorns trampled. The next moment, Aren's face became serious, and he jumped up 4.3 suddenly. After rolling several times in the sky, he stepped on Kuzan below with his feet, but dense thorns and thorns grew on the soles of his feet. Alas, this is really troublesome. Seeing this, Kuzan did not lighten Soccer's lead, and once again dodged to avoid it. Bang! Immediately, Aren fell down like a meteor, and stepped heavily on the position where Kuzan was just standing. The huge force directly caused a large pit to be sunken in the ground, and more than a dozen deep dense holes appeared in the middle position. Like honeycomb eyes. A violent air wave erupted at the same time, kicking up a large piece of soil like a shock wave, and splashing out in all directions. Ice ball. At this time, Kuzan counterattacked. He stretched out his hands, and the cold air bloomed, quickly turning the scorching battlefield into a winter moment, and then saw 5 icicles shot forward, instantly freezing Aren in a huge among the ice hockey. Chapter 17 Thorns, Ice, and Flash. Advertisement. Call. Kuzan let out a long breath of white air, stared at the huge hockey puck in front of him, and said to himself slowly, the injury from being injured by Big Mom hasn't healed yet. Then I really took advantage of it. It turned out that when he released the ice ball move just now, Aren on the opposite side wanted to dodge, but at the critical moment, he was holding his chest in pain, and coughed up a mouthful of blood. Frozen. Snap. Suddenly, a crack appeared on the huge ice ball, and then the crack expanded rapidly, turning into countless cracks on the ice ball. Ah, isn't it frozen? Kuzan's face changed slightly, and his eyes became sharper instantly. Boom. In the next second, the huge ice ball shattered, forming countless ice cubes and splashing out, and a figure walked out from the icy fog all over the sky. The 3 Logia ability users of Naval Headquarters are really abilities that cannot be underestimated. Yulin said with a pale face and a dignified tone. He knows each other. One of Marine's 3 Logia ability users, Powerful Vice Admiral, Logia, Frozen Fruit, ability user 14. It is said that he is a candidate for the next Marine Admiral, with overwhelming strength. In the Grand Line where monsters are rampant in the second half, he was also the man who made countless pirates fearful. Your Thorn Fruit is really a troublesome ability. Kuzan said distressedly. If you are not careful, you will be poked out a few transparent holes. Shout, stop complimenting me, cough cough. Yulin's face was as gloomy as water, and he couldn't help coughing twice. Obviously, the injuries he suffered in the Battle of Cullen Island are still affecting his body and state. Snap. At this moment, there was another crisp cracking sound, and then Baka, who had been frozen into an ice sculpture, also escaped from the trap, and the ice cubes on his body exploded, turning into countless ice cubes and splashing in all directions. Hiss, it's so cold. Baka shuddered, and kept touching his body, apparently terribly cold. Ah la la, I got out of trouble so quickly, what a troublesome guy. Kuzan had a distressed expression on his face, and he couldn't help raising his hand and scratching the back of his head. UB*******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************hiss. Baka was shivering from the cold, his teeth were chattering up and down, and he stammered a little. Duke, Your Excellency, there is another, a house that can emit radium and laser light, UK. Advertisement. Nani. Hearing this, Aren's expression changed drastically, and he exclaimed in shock, can emit laser light. Could it be Pelusaruno who has the ability of Logia sparkling fruit? Each of Naval Headquarters' 3 Logia-capable users has powerful destructive power like a natural disaster, and overwhelming terrifying power. I'm afraid it's that guy, it can't be wrong. Baka nodded earnestly, and recalled that when he was in the city before, the laser light that was as fast as a meteor passed through his body in a flash, making him subconsciously touch the bandaged abdomen. At the location of the wound, there was still a faint burning pain like a fire. Unexpectedly, in order to deal with us, Naval Headquarters actually dispatched the Vice Admiral Headquarters of 2 Logia-capable users. Wu Lun said in a concentrated voice. Is there a problem? Kuzan spread his hands and said with a light smile, it's only natural for Marines to catch pirates. Of course it's okay for Marines to catch pirates, but it's also okay for pirates to kill Marines. Aren said harshly, then let's deal with you first, and then deal with the other one. The thorn bolus. Aren yelled angrily, and rushed forward with one stride. Dozens of thorns and thorns grew out of his arms, which were extremely sharp, like a meteor hammer, and hit Kuzan on the head. Anti. There was an explosive sound like the collision of gold and iron, and a violent air wave visible to the naked eye exploded, lifting up the soil on the ground. Kuzan's expression changed slightly, the skate in his hand trembled violently, unexpectedly being repelled by the opponent's force, his feet plowed 2 long marks on the ground. God Thorn Spear. At this moment, Wu Lun looked solemn, his right hand clasped his palms together, and he stabbed forward like a knife. The palm of his hand instantly turned into black-brown thorns and spikes, extending out at a super high speed that exceeded the sound. In just an instant, the black-brown thorns stretched more than 10 meters, directly piercing Kuzan's chest, nailing him to the ground. Ice Cube 2 Thorny Spear. However, no blood flowed from Kuzan's chest. Instead, it turned into ice and froze the black-brown thorns in Aren's right hand, and 4 ice spears condensed out of thin air beside him, and were quickly launched. Muscle Tank. At the critical moment, Baka charged over like a chariot, his huge body was nimble and swift, breaking the 4 ice spears in midair on the spot. Shout. Elementalization. Thorns and thorns. Advertisement. Aren spat at Kuzan in displeasure, and his left hand turned into a black-brown thorny thorn. He blatantly stabbed forward in the air, and immediately burst out a sharp sword wave. The next moment, the hillside several hundred meters away exploded, and was penetrated by this powerful sword wave in the middle, forming a large circular hole like a tunnel. It's dangerous. Kuzan's body was condensed not far away, and he said in a speechless voice. G. Roar. Trademark chirp. Suddenly, hundreds of birds and monsters roared and flew over the battlefield quickly, setting off a raging wind and attacking any member of the piercing pirates like lightning. What kind of monsters are these? Damn it, shoot them down. Go away. Go away. The pirates were terrified, and they saw one after another being captured by monsters such as stone or metal eagles, giant eagles, gargoyles, and griffins, and then lifted them hundreds of meters into the air and threw them alive. Fell to the ground. Homies. Wu Lun's face changed drastically, and he suddenly remembered the huge army created by the heroine of the 040 Fang Kingdom in the Battle of Kulin Island more than 10 days ago. Your Excellency, he is a little ghost in Marine. He has a similar ability. He resurrected all the statues in Sculpture City. Baka quickly explained. Damn it, I encountered the same tricky ability here again. Halfway through speaking, Aren suddenly looked up towards the sky, stretched out his finger to a direction above his head, and asked, is it that brat? Baka looked in the direction of Aren's finger, and saw a huge metal black dragon hovering above his head, with a minor child sitting behind him. That's right, it's him. Baka nodded quickly, and said in a deep voice, this brat's strength is not weak. I was going to kill him in one go, but it didn't work. Suddenly, countless light particles gathered behind the 2 of them, and the shining light made them aware of the strangeness behind them. And it was passed into the ears of the 2 of them. Hey, speed is weight, have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? A slightly mocking voice of beating rang in the ears of the 2. Bang. At this moment, Aren and Baka's expressions changed drastically, and they were about to turn around to defend at the same time, but a gleaming long leg swept across Aren's waist like a steel whip. Facing the sudden attack, Aren didn't have time to react, and he flew out, turning into a black shadow on the spot, spanning hundreds of meters in almost an instant, and disappearing from the sight of countless people. Chapter 18 The Struggle Before Dying. Advertisement. Rumble. A huge roar sounded, and a wave of air and smoke soared into the sky in the distance, and the surrounding ground shook intermittently. Your Excellency the Duke. Ali Baka's eyes were tearing apart, and he rushed towards Pelusalino, who had manifested his figure, and shouted hysterically, go to hell. Muscle burst guns. In an instant, Baka's terrifying muscles swelled like a horned dragon, and his body was raised abruptly, like a giant devil's tendon. It even set off a surging wind, which almost lifted a layer of soil from the ground. It's scary, the mountain is a monster. Amazon cloud soared. Pelusolino pouted and smoked a cigarette. He folded his hands leisurely, and gathered a shining lightsaber in his hand. Clang 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 clang. Clang 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 clang. In the next second, the lightsaber slashed, and countless sword shadows danced out, intertwined with the shadows of fists all over the sky, bursting out the sound of dense metal and iron clashing. The violent air waves spread out one after another, making the air within a radius of tens of meters completely chaotic. Ordinary people may even have difficulty breathing in this range. Muscle cannon. Suddenly, Baka yelled loudly, gathered all his strength and punched forward. Bang! The fist rubbed against the air at a super high speed, and the terrifying fist wind that burst out was like a heavy cannon, blasting the ground down, forming a broken hole directly exceeding 5 meters in the ground. A strong air wave surged out, pushing countless pieces of crushed rocks flying out, like shotgun bullets, flying in all directions. If there are ordinary people here, they will definitely be smashed into a sieve by the sky full of gravel. However, Pelusolino had already turned into photons one step earlier, leapt into the air, avoided Baka's heavy punch, and turned into a huge and shining cross star, firing countless light bullets towards the bottom. 8-foot Chong Guyu. Boom, 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 boom. The light bullets poured down like a torrential rain, covering the entire ground, as if covered by dense artillery fire. The ground was shattered and dust was flying. Advertisement. Cross sat on the black dragon and wandered in the sky, feeling the strong wind blowing towards his face, and couldn't help but marvel in his heart. Logia's ability users are really unreasonable, it's too exaggerated. W. God Thorn Spear. Suddenly, Aren's angry shout echoed in the wilderness. Cross's expression changed, and a palpitating inexplicable feeling came to his heart. Out of the corner of his eye, he just saw a dark brown thorny thorn extending from the ground below. Too fast. It is too fast. Before Cross could react, the black-brown thorn had already stretched for hundreds of meters. With incomparable speed and impact, it was like a hot knife cutting butter, and it pierced through without any hindrance. The body of a metallic black dragon. At this moment, Cross turned his body subconsciously, and the black-brown thorny thorn that had been stretched for hundreds of meters had already pierced the body of the metal black dragon, brushing past his shoulder. The strong wind was like a sharp blade, cutting off the clothes and a piece of flesh on Cross's left shoulder, and a smear of hot, bright red blood splashed into the air. In the next second, the black-brown thorns hundreds of meters long quickly retracted, leaving only a fist-sized piercing hole on the metal black dragon's body, which was smooth and flawless to the touch. It took a while for Cross's tactile nerves to react. He felt the intense pain in his shoulder, and he couldn't help but let out a cry of pain. Your sister, it hurts so much. Cough cough. Cough cough cough. On the scorched earth battlefield, Yulin covered his mouth with a pale face and coughed, blood seeped out from between his fingers, and then said in a low and hoarse voice of anger, "Damn it, it's actually a little bit off." Aren understood that today was his end. It is also the end of the piercing pirates. But he was unwilling to be wiped out by Marine like this, so he planned to pull a back before he died. Hence, Cross coincidentally became Aren's target. But perhaps because of luck, Cross narrowly avoided Aren's all-powerful blow. Song suffered some skin trauma. However, Cross did not die, and Aren will probably die next, because his behavior has angered the two powerful factions of Marine, Vice Admiral. Vlad Aren, you are courting death. Advertisement. Ice Cube 2 Thorny Spear. Kuzan rushed over with an angry expression, 4 ice spears froze out of thin air all over his body, and fired them out with a swish. However, the attack just now seemed to have exhausted Aren's physical strength, making him even slower to dodge, and was almost pierced by 4 ice spears at 10 o'clock. Call out. In the next second, a laser beam traversed the entire battlefield like a golden meteor, precisely penetrating Aren's chest. Bang! A deafening explosion occurred behind Aren, and the raging flames formed a huge energy shield that was upside down on the ground, wantonly destroying everything within the range, causing the ground to vibrate violently like an earthquake. Facing the joint attack of ice and lasers and the siege of Vice Admiral, the two powerful factions of Marine, this big pirate who was seriously injured and physically exhausted finally drew the final curtain. In the Battle of Carlo Carl Island, Marine won a big victory and wiped out more than 700 members of the piercing pirates. Their members were either killed or captured, and only a few dozen escaped by chance. So far, the once famous piercing pirates have completely disappeared into the sea. In this battle, Marine killed the captain of the Pierce Pirates, Pierce Lord, Vlad Aren, a great pirate with a bounty of 762 million berry. And piercing the captain of the pirates, the Gladiator with a bounty of 588 million baileys, Ali Baka. There is also the ship doctor who pierced the pirates, and the polluter, Bel Von Gyro, who offered a bounty of 375 million baileys, was seriously injured and captured. As for Marine's loss, the total casualties were no more than 300 people, plus one Commodore was seriously injured, which can be said to be minimal. However, as part of the battlefield, City of Sculpture, Skokie suffered heavy losses. According to post-event statistics, 12 AH-40 plague virus bombs exploded. A total of 196 people were infected with the plague virus, and then all died 40 minutes later, and none survived. Later, Due to the urban chaos caused by the plague virus bomb, more than 2,000 people were trampled and injured and died, and many gangsters took advantage of the fire to loot, which also caused a lot of casualties and property losses. Of course, apart from casualties, the most serious losses are the sculptures and statues of various sizes in Skokie. Because on this day, a very strange thing happened in the famous city of sculpture in the world. 80% of the various sculptures and statues in the city were resurrected strangely, and then flew away. Ran away. Although in the end, most of the sculptures and statues returned, there were still a few flying sculptures and statues that left with Marines' warship. Ever since, City of Sculpture, Skokine has a very strange scene. Well, the streets are full of sculptures and statues walking and running around. Chapter 19 Naval Headquarters Marineford Part 1. Advertisement. Marines' Great Victory. Destroy the Piercing Pirates. The Impaler. Vlad Aren killed Carlo Carl Island. Picking up the leak. Marine wiped out the Piercing Pirates. City of Sculptures. Wonders of Skorky. Resurrected sculptures and statues. New in the Marine, the strange abilities of resurrected sculptures and statues. Following Marine's victory in Carlo Carl Island, the news spread quickly, and newspapers of all sizes issued newspapers to publicize Marine's victory. It's just that some newspapers are questioning Marine, thinking that Marine's victory this time is just a mistake. At the same time, as a prominent presence in the Battle of Carlo Carl Island, Cross was naturally noticed by some interested people. Of course, Cross made too much noise this time, and Marine couldn't hide it even if he wanted to. After all, the countless sculptures and statues running around in the City of Sculpture, Skokie can't be concealed anyway, attracting spies and informants from various forces to flock here. Second half of the Grand Line, New World Toto Land Kingdom. On Cake Island, inside the huge Cake Castle, the cadres of BIGMOM pirates gathered together 913, still celebrating a big victory not long ago. In the Battle of Cullen Island, the BIGMOM pirates easily defeated the Piercing Pirates, which numbered tens of thousands, and once again successfully maintained the BIGMOM pirates' dominance in the New World. Especially in that battle, the overwhelming power displayed by the BIGMOM pirates made countless pirates fearful and dared not take any provocative actions. Mom, the Piercing Pirates were all wiped out by Marine. Suddenly, a pirate rushed into the hall of Cake Castle, holding a copy of the latest world economic news in his hand. The sudden news gradually quieted down the lively banquet. Everyone showed surprised expressions, then turned their heads and turned their eyes to the direction of the huge throne. Oh, is that Aren guy dead? The woman on the throne shook her huge fat body, stretched out a big hand with gemstone rings on 5 fingers, and took the latest world economic news from her subordinates. Advertisement. Browse slowly. The woman on the throne was as tall as a little giant, with a fat body, wearing thick lipstick and light purple eyeshadow. She has long pink bebef hair, a pirate hat, a pink wide dress and red high heels. BIGMOM, Charlotte Linlin, the captain of the BIGMOM pirates, the queen of the Toto Land Kingdom, and one of the overlords of the New World. Well. After a while, Charlotte Linlin laughed in a low voice, and said to herself, Yulin, that idiot, actually died in the hands of Marine. How good the conditions were when he honestly agreed to me, and he wouldn't die before Marine's death. Hands. However, Marine seems to have obtained a good ability of devil fruit. It is actually able to resurrect the dead and create soldiers who are not afraid of death, similar to my homies. Speaking of this, Charlotte's special a shadow appeared in Linlin's eyes, and then he shouted in a deep voice, Peros Puro. Here, Mom, Peroli. A slender man with a pointed face and heavy makeup came out of the crowd in the hall. He had a long nose, a tongue that reached to his chest, and long dark blue hair with a little bit of light blue. Wearing a top hat with several lollipops on it, wearing a light yellow long coat with a large light yellow collar, holding a candy cane that combines lollipops and candy canes, facing Charlotte Linlin in front of her a very respectful bow. Charlotte Perospero, BIGMOM Pirates Cadre, Toto Land Candy Minister, Charlotte Linlin's eldest son. Go investigate someone. Charlotte Linlin threw the World Economic News in her hand to her eldest son, and said in a deep voice, it seems that a newcomer appeared in Marine, and he played a very important role in the battle to wipe out the Piercing Pirates. I need his detailed information. No problem, Mom. Peroli. Perospero nodded, took the World Economic News, and responded with a smile. The first half of the Grand Line. Marineford Island Naval Headquarters. 6 warships slowly entered the port and docked at the vacant berths. Standing on the deck of one of the warships, Cross saw dozens of warships of all levels moored in the port, as well as many turrets along the coast. Of course, the most spectacular thing is right in front. A huge and incomparably huge fortress is located on this island, as huge as a mountain. On the front of this fortress, there are eye-catching giant Chinese characters, Marine, and the Marine logo in the middle, representing naval headquarters and symbolizing the existence of justice. Advertisement. As far as Cross knows, there are not only the naval headquarters fortress and the main port on Marineford Island, but behind the fortress, there are many towns where Marine family members live, as well as Marine. Hey, it's finally here. Pelusolino walked to the railing of the ship, stared at the top of the headquarters fortress, and said to himself, I really want to take a vacation. I don't know if Marshal Sora will approve holidays. At this time, Kuzan came over lazily, and after stretching comfortably, he still looked sleepy, and said in a lazy and slow tone, Alala, I think it's very precarious. After all, the situation at sea very unstable. How could Marshal Kong let such a powerful combat force like you go on vacation? This is really troublesome. When I want to deal with the monsters of New World, I feel so terrible. Pelusolino said with a distressed face. Hey, Cross couldn't see it, and couldn't help but said. I said, two vice admirals, can you be a little bit more motivated? Such a lazy appearance makes my recruit have a very bad influence on you. Hey, little Cross, you're really full of energy. Pelusolino said with a nonchalant smile, pouting his lips and smoking a cigarette. It's a good thing for young people to be motivated. I like you, yawn. Kuzan opened his mouth wide and let out a long yawn. Thank you, I didn't see it. Cross looked at the two men in front of him with a dark face, extremely speechless. I have been thinking about vacations, salary increases, and dawdling all day long. A whole day of yawning and sleeping in. Thinking that these two people will become Marine Admiral in the near future, it will make Cross feel like Marine is eating juju pills. Delusion. Must be an illusion. After all, these two men will be able to take Marine Admiral in the future, and indeed possess overwhelming strength. Just talking about the former, it's scary to bite one, and a supernova with one kick. The latter is not inferior, directly freezing the sea, allowing ordinary people to walk on it for a week. Therefore, monsters are still monsters, and there is no doubt about their strength. Chapter 20 Naval Headquarters Marineford Part 2. Advertisement. Yeah, I understand. Don't worry, they won't hurt anyone. This is a necessary sacrifice for justice. In the marshal's office, Kong held the microphone of the phone bug, and kept talking to someone on the other side of the phone bug, and his words were persuasive and coercive. Cross stood not far from the desk, carefully sniffing at the man in front of him. The other party was a very strong old man with a broad chest, tan skin and white hair and beard in the shape of a mountain. There was a stitched scar under his left eye, and he was wearing a white suit decorated with medals. But there was a light yellow scarf around his neck, and a justice coat with golden shoulder pads. He was as imposing as a mountain. This person is the Marshal of the Marine, open black lens bracket Kong close black lens bracket Kong. After a long time, Kong hung up the phone, shifted his gaze to Cross in front of him, and after sizing him up, nodded in satisfaction, and said with a smile, although, Sculpture City, Skokie, there are people running around all over the street. The sculptures and statues are a little troublesome, but you did it on Carlo Carl Island, not bad. Thank you Marshal for your compliment, everything is for justice. Cross replied with a solemn expression. That's right, everything is for justice. Kong smiled and nodded, then said with a slightly serious tone, given your achievements on Carlo Carl Island, you should have been promoted, but you are about to enter study at Marine School, so this time the merits will be suppressed first, and when you graduate, I will return the merits to you intact and personally give you the title. Thank you Marshal. Cross showed joy, and quickly saluted a military salute. To be honest, he doesn't really care about the position, what he values is the degree of freedom after promotion, the higher the promotion, the less people will take care of themselves. Otherwise, he is a recruit and has no position. He has to salute when he sees that everyone is a superior. Anyone can order him, which is more painful. You don't need to thank me, you got it by your ability. Kong smiled and said, okay, go down and recuperate, someone will take you to the Marine School. Yes. Cross turned his head slightly, glanced at his still painful left shoulder, then straightened his expression, saluted with his right hand, then turned and left the marshal's office. Seeing the back of Cross leaving, Kong smiled and shook his head, and said to himself rather annoyed. This brat is very cunning, but those resurrected sculptures and statues are really troublesome, we can't let them go in naval as well. Let's run around in the headquarters, well, better find a place to lock them all up. Fortunately, the capacity of those 6 warships is not enough, otherwise this brat would not have moved all the tens of thousands of sculptures and statues in Sculpture City, Skokie back to Marineford. On the other side, Cross came out of the marshal's office and came to the corridor, where he saw Guillaume crossed his arms in front of his chest, with the famous sword Kinpira on his waist, leaning lazily on the wall beside him. Advertisement. Cross raised his eyebrows, raised his hand to say hello, and said, Miss Guillaume, long time no see. Hearing the sound, Guillaume quickly stood up straight, and said rather complainingly, you are so slow, is Marshal Sora nagging endlessly? Marshal Kong is busy with work, he's just been on the phone. Cross was taken aback by Guillaume's words, couldn't help but look at the closed door behind him, and then quickly explained. I don't care about this. Guillaume waved his hands unhappily, looked at Cross's eyes, and said, let's go, I'll take you to Marine School. Are you taking me there? Cross froze for a moment, and looked at Guillaume with a look of surprise on his face. He didn't expect that the person Marshal Sora was talking about was actually Guillaume. That's right, I happened to be on vacation today, but I was dragged by Crane Big Sister to do coolies, and I want to show you the way, little brat. Guillaume glared at Cross in displeasure. Obviously, Suru Vice Admiral knew that Cross didn't know anyone in naval headquarters, so he sent Guillaume to guide him. After all, he was relatively familiar with Guillaume. Cross scratched his head in embarrassment, knowing that he had interrupted Guillaume's vacation, so he said, well, I'll treat you to dinner, and you tell me the place. That's about the same. Guillaume proudly raised his head, somewhat satisfied with Cross's sincerity. Afterwards, Guillaume, who was familiar with the road, led Cross to open the naval headquarters fortress to the town area behind the fortress. As the place where the Marine family lives, the towns on Marineford Island have everything you need, ranging from ordinary houses and taverns, to villa-style houses and high-end restaurants, as well as entertainment and leisure places such as casinos and large baths. They are completely in touch with the outside world. Towns are identical. Even, because the towns on Marineford Island were fortified together with the naval headquarters, their safety was almost second only to Mariajoy, a holy place on the Red Line, which was the location of the world government headquarters. Asking for flowers, Cross and Guillaume walked on the town streets of Marineford Island, almost full of Marine soldiers in blue and white military uniforms, and even generals and officers in justice coats can be seen everywhere. But it's also normal. As the location of naval headquarters, Marineford Island has a permanent army of about 30,000 people, dozens of warships of all levels, and many families of soldiers and officers are on the island, so it was established. Towns are naturally marine. Yo, Guillaume, is this your brother? Advertisement. Miss Guillaume, long time no see. Major Guillaume, I heard that you are on vacation, would you like to have a drink together? Hi, Guillaume, we are going to have a dinner party, let's come together. Along the way, Cross didn't expect that Guillaume next to her was so popular. She was constantly greeted by people, both men and women, and there were not a few people who invited her to dinner. What, looking beautiful, and the blessing of popularity halo. You are so popular, Cross said with some surprise. Of course, Guillaume held his head proudly, like a little swan, and said proudly, for interrupting my vacation, don't think that treating me to dinner is some kind of compensation, someone has to treat me. Cross curled his lips, ignoring the smug girl, just turned his head and looked around, scanning the shops on both sides of the street. I want to find a good high-end restaurant to eat. Suddenly, Guillaume stopped in his tracks, pointed to a restaurant next to him and said, this is the one. I love the Akazuke and Yatsuhashi dim sum the most. Juyuan cuisine. Cross looked at the small restaurant in front of him and the name on the signboard, and couldn't help saying, Miss Guillaume, let's find a high-end restaurant, I won't be overwhelmed by a few meals. Hearing this, Guillaume gave Cross a blank look, and said disdainfully, you little brat, I'm giving it to you, right? Don't think too beautifully, I know you are a nobleman, very rich. Cross scratched his head, feeling a little embarrassed suddenly, so he had to ask, Miss Guillaume, is there anything special about this Juyuan restaurant? The owner of this restaurant is a retired old sea soldier. His craftsmanship is quite good, and the materials used are not cheap, so despite its small size, the consumption is not low. Crane Big Sister also likes to come here. Guillaume explained Road. That's right. Then I'll wait and see. Cross's eyes brightened slightly, looking forward to the Taoist priest. Chapter 21 Conversation with Guillaume. Advertisement. Uncle Luke, here I come again. Guillaume lifted the curtain, walked into Juyuan restaurant, and shouted directly. Cross followed Guillaume and walked in, looking at the environment of the store curiously. The space inside is really small, there are about a dozen tatami booths covered by curtains, but the environment is very good, very quiet, and the beige walls are decorated with arabesque patterns. Even the decorations such as hanging pictures and vases are mostly plain colors, with only a few dark-colored decorations as embellishments, and some green plants such as flowers and plants look very comfortable. Yo, it's Guillaume girl. At this time, a one-eyed uncle came out of the kitchen, wearing a white chef's uniform and a tall chef's hat, and came to Guillaume with a smile, and said, I remember you haven't paid your salary yet, how can you have money? Come to spend. Oh, Guillaume stared dissatisfiedly at the one-eyed uncle in front of him, pouted his rosy, 950, mouth, and said angrily, I don't have any money, so someone else will invite me to dinner, Uncle Luke, think I can't afford it. Cuckoo, I almost forgot, Guillaume girl is famous as the flower of Marine, so someone will snatch it away and invite you to dinner. The one-eyed man called. Luke laughed strangely, and his words were full of contempt. Guillaume's deliberate teasing. Is it interesting to talk nonsense? Guillaume Chow % glared at the other party with an unhappy face, then took Cross's arm, and said loudly, hurry up and find us a seat, today I want to eat poor and disturb my vacation brat. Cross shrugged disapprovingly, and said to the boss in front of him, Mr. Luke, please find us a vacant seat. Miss Guillaume likes Akazuke and Yatsuhashi dim sum, so I'll have some udon noodles, grilled eel, let's serve octopus balls and tonkatsu. By the way, let's serve some tempura and cold clams too. Of course there is no problem, but is the little brother Marine? Luke nodded and looked at Cross with his only one eye. Before Cross could answer, Guillaume said first. Don't worry, Uncle Luke, I know your rules, this brat has already joined the Marine, and the big sister Suru recommended him to study at the Marine school in the headquarters. Cuckoo, it turned out to be a newcomer recommended by Xiaohei, so come with me. Luke said something with a smile, and then took Guillaume and Cross to an empty tatami booth. After the two sat down, Luke picked up the teapot and poured 2 cups of steaming brown rice tea, then retreated. After seeing Luke stepping back, Cross took a sip of the teacup leisurely, and immediately felt the strong aroma of the tea and rice, which tasted very good, and then asked, is there any other rules in this shop? Advertisement. Guillaume also took 2 sips of brown rice tea, and replied with a smile, it's not a big rule, it's just that Uncle Luke doesn't like to entertain people other than Marine, so only Marine and his family can eat in his shop. Quote. I see. Cross nodded thoughtfully, and then said, Miss Guillaume, I'm a recruit, can you tell me about the Marine school? As a time traveler, Cross knows a lot about the future of this world, not only the future of many people, but also some secrets that ordinary people don't know. It's just that in One Piece's anime, there is almost no description of the Marine School, and there is only a former Marine Admiral open black lens bracket black arm close black lens bracket Zephyr as the chief instructor of the Marine School on Baidu Encyclopedia. Students are located throughout the Marine. Even in the theatrical version of the movie, theatrical version 12 The Strongest Enemy Z, it only describes some deeds of Zephyr incarnated as Z and there is basically no mention of Marine School. Therefore, after Cross joined the Marine, he gradually learned about the Marine School. However, he still doesn't know much about the Marine School. He only knows that the Marine School is the only educational institution in the Marine, which specializes in cultivating excellent sailors for the Marine. It can be said that most of the officers in the Marine came out of the Marine School. For example, Sengoku Admiral, Staff Officer Crane, Pelusolino Vice Admiral, and Kuzan Vice Admiral that Cross knew had all studied in the Marine School. Marine School. Actually, I don't know much about it, because I have never been to a Marine School. Holding a teacup, Gion recalled, I know that a Marine School existed a long time ago. Sengoku Admiral, Crane Big Sister, and Mr. Zephyr, the current Marine School Chief Instructor, and even the Marine Hero Monkey D. Garp Vice Admiral, have all studied in the previous Marine School. However, I heard that after Mr. Zephyr resigned from the Admiral position, he transferred to the instructor of the Marine School and made a lot of reforms to the Marine School. Listening to Gion's narration, Cross understood that the Marine School existed a long time ago, and most of the current Marine executives have attended the Marine School. However, the current instructor Zephyr of the Marine School, who used to be the former Admiral of Headquarters, joined the Marine School when he was 14 years old, and his students at the same time included the 17-year-old Crane. Monkey D. Garp, 18, and Sengoku, 19. However, Zephyr resigned from the position of Marine Admiral after his family was killed by pirates, but was retained by his superiors, so he retained the rank of Admiral and transferred to the instructor of Marine School. And many reforms were made to the Marine Schools. Marine School. In the dark room, Zephyr sat alone behind the desk, processing the documents in his hand with the light from the window next to him. As the chief instructor of the Marine School, he has worked hard and devoted himself to the educational cause of Marine. In other words, since his family was killed by pirates, he has regarded Marine's education as his only sustenance. Advertisement. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Zephyr frowned slightly. Without raising his head, he shouted in a deep voice. The door is unlocked, come in by yourself. Crunch. In the next second, the door was pushed open. Gion walked in first, and Cross followed closely into the office. Uncle Zephyr, I brought you a newcomer. Gion swaggered to the desk, raised his finger and pointed to Cross behind him. It's you, Gion, thank you for your hard work. Zephyr raised his head, a little smile appeared on his expressionless face, and he said with a smile, then his eyes quickly jumped over Gion, and fell on Cross behind her. Zephyr Chief Instructor, I am Amphitheater Cross, and I am ordered to come to Marine School. Cross stood at attention and gave a military salute to Zephyr in front of him. Zephyr is measuring 3.9 Cross, and Cross is also measuring translation. I saw the man in front of me with a resolute face, short purple hair, a pair of rimless glasses, a purple suit, a lavender long-sleeved shirt, a lavender tie with red polka dots, and a Marine Justice coat. Open black lens bracket black arm close black lens bracket Zephyr, former Marine Admiral, current Marine Chief Instructor. He fought against countless pirates in his life, but never killed any enemy, the former Admiral of Naval Headquarters who was called, Don't Kill. However, as a time traveler, Cross knew that the man in front of him was a real strong man, but also a completely tragic figure. The family was killed, students died tragically. Even Marine, whom he dedicated his life to, betrayed him when he was old. In the end, he was killed by the students he taught, it was extremely miserable. Chapter 22 Marine School 1. Advertisement. At this time, Zephyr found that the kid in front of him looked at him with pity and sympathy. It must be because I have been busy day and night for the selection of elite students in the past few days, so I am a little tired, so I am dazzled. Ahem. Zephyr coughed a few times, took off the glasses on his face, and said seriously, I heard that you helped Kuzan and Pelusolino wipe out the piercing pirates on Carlo Carl Island. You did a good job. No wonder Crane recommended you to come in. Marine School. The chief instructor praised me. I just did a little bit for Marine. The real people who wiped out the piercing pirates are Kuzan Vice Admiral and Pelusolino Vice Admiral. Cross replied in a deep voice. Gong is gong, you don't have to be humble. F.A. said with a smile. No, chief instructor, I'm not humble. Cross shook his head, and said calmly, I once cooperated with the agents of the CP organization to catch Belle Von Gyro, and I even fought head-to-head with Ali Baka. I was almost killed by Vlad Aren, so I understand that my strength is just icing on the cake for Marine, with me and without me, the difference is 14 inches. After hearing what Cross said, Zephyr showed appreciation and said softly, It's good for you to be self-aware, but your ability helped Marine reduce a lot of casualties in the battle on Carlo Carl Island, and you used your ability after the battle, quickly calmed down the chaos in Sculpture City, Skokie. This is not nonsense. Cross lowered his gaze and was silent for a moment, then raised his head, looked straight into Zephyr's eyes with a serious expression, and said, Since the chief instructor has acknowledged my contribution, can you arrange a single dormitory for me? Cough, 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 cough. Zephyr was so lucky that he didn't choke to death from his own saliva, and Gion on the side almost lost his footing and nearly fell to the ground. Cross looked innocent, not understanding why the two reacted so strongly. Could it be that there is no single dormitory in Marine School? It took a long time for Zephyr to calm down, looked at Cross with a strange expression, and said, "Don't worry, you are a default student of the elite class, and you live in a single dormitory." "That's right, thank you, Chief Instructor." Cross's eyes lit up, and he quickly thanked him. "Advertisement. You got it by your own ability." Zephyr waved his hand speechlessly, and then shouted towards the door, "It's fixed." Shuzo. Cross frowned slightly, and subconsciously glanced at Gion. He didn't expect that Zephyr's favorite general would appear so early. Gion on the side pouted, with a speechless expression on his face, completely ignoring Cross. "Shuzo is also a student of this year's elite class, but I've been busy recently, so I asked him to be my temporary assistant for a few days." Zephyr explained. After a while, a young man from the Changsho clan walked in. His skin was dark brown, his black hair was braided and hung behind his back, and he was wearing the white sailor uniform of ordinary sailors. "Teacher Zephyr, what's the matter?" Shuzo looked solemn, and walked to the desk without looking sideways before stopping. "This is Amphitheater Cross, the last student of this elite class, take him to dormitory number 56 in Building 4. Zephyr pointed to Cross and said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Shuzo glanced at Gion and Cross, couldn't help but frowned, and asked suspiciously, "Teacher Zephyr, isn't the selection for the 16th elite class over?" "It's over, but didn't you realize there were only 49 people?" Zephyr said. "However, Mr. Zephyr, let this kind of underage child enter the 16th elite class without being selected. I'm afraid it will cause dissatisfaction among other students who were not selected." Shuzo said hesitantly. "It's not that Cross hasn't been selected, it's just that his selection is different from yours. He has participated in actual combat and passed the assessment of Marine Senior Management, so he is eligible to enter the elite class." Having said this, Zephyr paused, and said seriously, "Of course, if someone is not convinced, he can challenge him at any time. As long as he can defeat him, the winner can replace Cross as a member of the elite class." Hey, instructor, you must be joking." Cross's expression changed slightly, and he yelled hastily. "What, are you scared?" Zephyr asked intentionally. "Boss instructor, I'm just afraid of trouble." Cross shrugged helplessly, and asked angrily, "Okay, but what if I accidentally injured those challengers?" Advertisement. As long as the opponent is not killed or maimed, it's okay to be seriously injured. Zephyr laughed. "In that case, I'm looking forward to those challengers." Cross's eyes lit up, and his tone was quite cheerful. "Free sparring, and no need to pay for medical expenses. This is a good thing." Shuzo frowned, looked at Cross with a puzzled expression, and secretly guessed in his heart, is it possible that this brat is really that strong? He understands his teacher's personality and behavior, and he clearly knows that teacher Zephyr will not lie, let alone use the place in the elite class to make any behind-the-scenes transactions. So this kid must have something special about him. However, this kid looks like a minor, how powerful can he be? At this time, Cross saw the suspicion in Shuzo's eyes, and didn't care. After all, his strength is shown, not spoken. Besides, he entered this year's elite class as a minor child, which will naturally arouse the suspicion of countless people. He is not angry, he has long been mentally prepared for this. When he was in Juyuan restaurant before, he heard from Gion that the annual elite class system is one of Zephyr's reforms in the Marine School. It is not only well received, but also cultivates many Marine elites. The normal system of the Marine 277 school is a 6-year system, including 4 years of study at the school, 2 years of practical practice, and then formally enter the Marine and be assigned to various branches. However, there are always some monsters and geniuses in this world who are beyond ordinary people, and their strength is far beyond her students in the same class. The normal 6-year system is undoubtedly a waste of their talents. Therefore, Zephyr conducts selections in the Marine School every year. Among more than 1,000 students, 50% of the top 50 outstanding students are selected, and he personally teaches them for a 1-year training. If after the 1-year training is over, all 50 elite class students can pass and complete the necessary literary examination, they can choose to graduate early. Of course, if you are too young and have not yet reached the age of 16, you can also choose not to graduate and stay in the Marine School to continue your studies temporarily, and choose to graduate after you reach the age of 16. It's just that very few students who enter the Marine School are under the age of 16. Zephyr joined the Marine School at the age of 14, and is already the youngest student ever. Similarly, Zephyr's experience is also an inconceivable glory in Marine history. He was promoted to Marine Admiral at the age of 38, the youngest Marine Admiral in history. However, he stepped down as Admiral at the age of 42, which was also one of the shortest admirals in Marine history. Chapter 23 Marine School 2. Advertisement. Marine School has a large area, second only to Marineford Town and Naval Headquarters Fortress. It has more than a dozen dormitory buildings and teaching buildings, as well as multiple practice fields, and is surrounded by walls and barbed wire, almost like another town. Cross learned from Shuzo that the Marine School has more than 1,300 cadet sailors and hundreds of retired and active military officers as instructors, which can be called the largest school in the world. At the same time, both naval headquarters and the world government have invested a lot of various resources for this marine news, from food, medicinal materials to weapons and equipment. It can be said that there is everything that one expects to find, and it is more than enough to feed a marine branch that starts with the letter G. On the way to Building 4, Shuzo told Cross some basic information about Marine School, and then handed him a folded parchment. Give you. What is this? Map of Marine School. Oh, thank you. Cross looked at the parchment in his hand, and unexpectedly felt that Shuzo in front of him was particularly pleasing to the eye. Afterwards, Cross opened the folded parchment in his hand, and looked at it as he walked. The entire Marine School has a total of 16 buildings, sorted from 1 to 16. Building 1 is the office building, which is where Zephyr's office is located, and it is also where the offices of the 6th grade instructors are located. Building number 2 to building number 11 are all dormitory buildings, with a uniform standard of 6 floors, and each floor has 10 rooms, that is, each building has 60 rooms. Among them, building 2 and building 3 are dormitory buildings for instructors, single dormitories. Building number 4 is the student dormitory for each elite class, and it is also a single dormitory. Then from building 5 to building 11, all the dormitories for ordinary students live in one room for every 4 people. Advertisement. Buildings number 12 and number 13 are classrooms, places for studying liberal arts such as sailing, marine history and commanding. Buildings number 14 and number 15 belong to logistics places such as indoor training grounds and warehouses, and only have 4 floors. Building number 16 is the cafeteria and bathrooms, also has 5 floors, the lower 3 floors are cafeterias, and the upper 2 floors are bathrooms. Finally, there are training grounds, including physical fitness training grounds, cold weapon training grounds, firearms training grounds, heavy weapon training grounds and other training grounds. In short, the map in Cross's hand is very comprehensive, marking all the places of the Marine School. Okay, we poured back quote. Suddenly, Shuzo stopped, pointed to the tall building in front of him and said. Cross raised his head and stared at the tall building in front of him in a daze. The appearance of the white wall has blue stripes, and there is a big, 4 sign in the middle of the tall building. As for why it is called a tall building, it is because each floor of this building has a height of more than 5 meters, and the overall height exceeds 30 meters. Obviously, it is to take care of some tall students. Shuzo, is this brat your brother? Suddenly, a rather embarrassing voice came from behind Cross and Shuzo. Cross and Shuzo frowned at the same time, looked behind unhappily, and saw a man and a woman walking towards them. The man has short silver hair, a cigar in his mouth, and he is wearing a marine soldier's white sailor uniform, dark blue pants, and brown marten boots. The woman had long, light pink hair parted in the middle, a pretty and glamorous face, and a lady's cigarette dangling from her mouth. She was also wearing a white sailor suit, dark blue pants, and a pair of black round-toed shoes. Smoker, do you smoke too much and have hallucinations in your eyes? Which I can tell that he is from the long-handed family. Shuzo said with a cold face. Ha 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 ha, don't be so serious, it's just a joke, don't you, Hina? Smoker laughed viciously, and smiled at the woman beside him with winks. Advertisement. Hina didn't see it. Hina glanced at Smoker, and said in a cold voice, Hina knows that you said that on purpose, just to tease Shuzo. Hey, what are you talking about? Smoker's face darkened, and he couldn't help shouting at the top of his voice. Hina ignored the maddened Smoker, walked directly in front of Cross, looked at him a few times, and said in an unquestionable tone, the Marine School does not allow outsiders to enter, let alone run around, even if it is a minor. The little devil in the company is no exception, so you are also a Marine. What? Smoker came to his senses, took a few steps forward in surprise, looked at Cross up and down, and said, I thought it was just a brat in a sailor costume, at most it has nothing to do with Shuzo. Miss Hina, you are not only beautiful, but also very smart, so what else can you analyze? Cross looked at Hina in front of him in surprise, and said encouragingly. Call. Hina didn't care. Instead, she took the lady's cigarette from her mouth with her hand, and slowly exhaled a puff of smoke. While thinking, she analyzed. The selection competition for the elite class just ended a few days ago, but there are only 49 candidates, and there is still one missing. Man, this surprised all the students and instructors, but today you came and were taken to Building 4 by Shuzo. Having said that, Hina paused, and her tone suddenly became uncertain. Shuzo is the temporary assistant of Teacher Zephyr, and he will take you to Building 4. So, you are the last 10 members of this elite class. On the spot, Cross clapped his hands and said cheerfully, Miss Hina, I really amazed you. That's right, I am the last person in this elite class. My name is Amphitheater Cross. In the next year, please give me your advice. Are you kidding? Smoker on the side widened his eyes, looked at Shuzo in disbelief, and shouted in disbelief. Shuzo, tell me quickly, your guy is your illegitimate child, otherwise, he is an underage brat. How could it be possible to enter the 16th elite class, yeah? Hearing Smoker's words, Shuzo's face turned black with anger, and he growled angrily, Smoker, what nonsense are you talking about? Smoker was not frightened by Shuzo's anger, but turned tit for tat and said loudly, I don't believe it. He's an underage brat. He has neither attended a good Marine school, nor passed the selection a few days ago, and suddenly said that he became a member of the elite class. Even if it is true, I suspect that it is also due to power. Shuzo suddenly calmed down, snorted coldly with disdain, and said, this is the decision of Teacher Zephyr and the senior management of Marine. If you have any questions, you can directly ask Teacher Zephyr, or directly respond to the senior management of Naval Headquarters. The decision between Mr. Zephyr and Marine's top management. Smoker was a little dazed, looked at Cross involuntarily, and scratched the back of his head very puzzled. Teacher Zephyr said that Cross participated in a special actual combat assessment, and got the consent of Marine's senior management, so he didn't participate in the selection competition a few days ago. At this time, Shuzo also looked at Cross, and continued. However, Zephyr the teacher also said that if someone in the Marine School is not convinced, he can challenge him at any time, as long as he can defeat him, the winner can replace Cross as a member of the elite class. Chapter 24 Marine School 3. Advertisement. Have you heard? Of course I've heard that a kid who doesn't know where he came from actually became the last member of this elite class. I heard that the brat passed a special actual combat assessment, so he stepped in midway. It's just farting. That brat is said to be only 15 years old. I think it must be a guy who came through the back door, otherwise how could he pass the special actual combat assessment? I guess Mr. Zephyr must not like him, otherwise, Mr. Zephyr would not have released the news that whoever can defeat that brat can replace that brat and become a student of the elite class. Before it was dark, a piece of news spread quickly among the students of Marine School. Before it was dinner time, almost all the students knew about it. A 15-year-old kid entered the elite class directly without passing the cruel selection competition at the Marine School a few days ago, becoming the last member of the 16th elite class. All of a sudden, the canteen, the dormitory, the playground, the bathroom. There were students talking about it everywhere in the Marine School. Although there were rumors that the other party participated in the actual combat and passed the assessment of the Marine high level, so in order to become a member of the elite class. But such rumors obviously cannot convince everyone. Most of the students of the unsuccessful candidates are more willing to believe that the other party is a guy who went through the back door of 483, and they don't believe that a kid who is only 15 years old can participate in the special actual combat assessment and pass it. Most importantly, Hanan still has its own basis. The basis is the news from Zephyr's general instructor's office, saying that whoever can defeat the 15-year-old kid can replace the other party and become the last elite class student. In the eyes of the students of the Marine School, this kind of news means that Zephyr's chief instructor is a righteous person, and he is unwilling to join forces with the Marine high-level officials. He let a guy who came through the back door enter the Marine School, but he couldn't change the decision of the Marine high-level leaders, so he made this bad plan. I want the students in Marine School to drive each other away. It has to be said that such a guess is well-founded and convincing. Even Cross, who was at the center of the storm, almost believed it after hearing it. Zephyr, who was sitting in the office, almost laughed out loud when he heard it, but he didn't expect that he would raise his image a lot with a casual remark. At the same time, Cross had already brought back his luggage from Pelusalino's warship, and then returned to the single dormitory of the Marine School. After finishing everything, he walked alone on the neat stone road, ignoring the strangeness of the crowd around him. Looking forward, I came to the canteen on the second floor of the 16th floor. Meals in the canteen of Marine School are free, but the first floor is for ordinary students, the second floor is for elite students, and the third floor is for instructors. However, if they have money, ordinary students can also spend money to eat on the second and third floors. In addition, the food on the second and third floors is indeed much more delicate and delicious than the big pot of rice on the first floor, which leads to many wealthy students they all came to the second and third floors to eat. Advertisement. However, the seats in the cafeteria on the third floor are all independent boxes with a limited number, which are not only expensive, but also need to be reserved in advance, so the cafeteria on the second floor is the normal dining place for wealthy students. I want a steak, medium rare, and milk cake and apple salad. A serving of macaroni, a bowl of tomato and egg soup, 2 pieces of roast meat and a serving of silver cod. A bowl of miso ramen, grilled chicken and tonkatsu. 5 bowls of white rice, plus a grilled snail and a smoked chicken. There were hundreds of people in the spacious and bright canteen on the second floor, and it was extremely noisy. Except for a few people, most of them were spending money to buy food. But just after Cross entered the cafeteria on the second floor, hundreds of people turned their heads one after another, countless eyes focused on him, and the original noisy voice quickly weakened. After a while, the entire cafeteria on the second floor became completely quiet, as if a pot of cold water had been poured into a ball of fire. At one point, the chef in the cafeteria was a little confused and didn't understand what happened. Not many of the 6th graders at Marine School are 15 or 16 years old, so as soon as Cross entered the cafeteria on the second floor, he was recognized as the new guy. Is this a kind of welcome? Cross BEBD tilted his head, and joked nonchalantly to the hundreds of people in front of him who were more interested. However, no one answered his words, and the scene was still cold. Everyone is expressionless, with curiosity, anger, schadenfreude, and indifference in their eyes. After a while, seeing that no one answered, Cross was not embarrassed, just curled his lips bored, and then walked towards the window of the nearest cafeteria, preparing to settle his dinner. There is a saying that goes well, as long as I am not embarrassed, it is others who are embarrassed. In fact, many people present wanted to beat Cross, so as to get the last place in the elite class. But there is no shortage of smart people in the world, and many people are afraid of Cross and are still considering whether to make a move. Advertisement. Because according to the rumors, the other party entered the elite class through the back door, which means that the other party's background is strong enough to influence Marine's senior management. But everyone will enter Marine in the near future, so is it worth it to offend a guy with a great background for a spot in the elite class? Therefore, because everyone present did not know the details of Cross, coupled with all kinds of worries in their hearts, no one made a move blindly, but they all hoped that others would make a move first, so that everyone froze in place. 5 servings of filet mignon, all of which should be medium ripe, 3 servings of macaroni, 1 fried pork chop, 1 roast chicken, 3 pieces of roast meat, and a bowl of tomato and egg soup. At this moment, Cross stood at the number 1 window of the cafeteria, ordered a lot of food, then took out a black iron card representing his identity, and gestured to the chef behind the glass. Seeing the black iron card, the chef at window number 1 nodded and began to bring food to Cross, because most of the food is ready-made and can be taken out directly. Soon, Cross held a tray full of steaming food, turned around to find an empty seat, sat down and ate. I have to say that the food in the cafeteria on the 2nd floor is not bad. Although it is not comparable to Juyuan restaurant, it is also comparable to ordinary restaurants. However, Cross's attitude of acting like no one else angered most of the people present at once. Little devil, you are very arrogant. Finally, someone couldn't bear it any longer, and the 3 strong men put down the knives and forks in their hands, stood up at the same time, and surrounded Cross aggressively. I'll talk about it after dinner, thank you, Cross said without raising his head. The tone is flat, full of politeness, and there is no arrogance at all. However, the 3 men were furious, and one of them yelled angrily, "Little devil, you are looking for a beating." As soon as the words fell, he raised his arms and slapped Cross towards Cross. However, in the next second, all the onlookers felt a flash of cold light before their eyes, and before they could react, the man's palm was nailed to the solid wood dining table by a table knife, and he screamed in pain. Ah, my hand, my hand. Chapter 25 Marine School 4. Advertisement. The sudden swift and violent cut made the remaining 2 people's expressions change drastically, and they took a step back with horror on their faces. They are all just ordinary students, and have never participated in real combat. Even in the fighting classes and test competitions inside the Marine School, there are very few guys who see blood with a single shot, which is too cruel. Hiss. Seeing this scene, the onlookers were all stunned, and couldn't help but gasp. Some people were terrified because of Cross's hard shot. Some people were stunned because they didn't see Cross's shot clearly. At this time, Cross raised his head expressionlessly, reached out to pick up the white napkin that was put aside, and gracefully wiped the food residue from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the 3 people in front of him with cold eyes, he said slowly, I have just having said that, there is something to talk about after I finish eating, because I really hate people interrupting my eating. Suddenly, a man stood up from the surrounding crowd, gritted his teeth and said angrily, you guy, don't you think the shot is too heavy? Cross glanced at the other party, and said in a flat tone, the chief instructor of Zephyr told me that in the face of some challenges, as long as you don't kill or maim the other party, it doesn't matter what you do, so I stabbed along the bone between his middle finger and ring finger. Those who go in, pull out the knife, put some medicine on it and bandage it, it's just a flesh wound. Stop talking sweet words here, we are all classmates at the same school, and you are so ruthless, you are not worthy of being a Marine. The man said loudly with righteous words. That's right, the shot was too ruthless. It's too much to be so arrogant on the first day of coming to Marine School. Just now we were regarded as nothing, so we must be taught a lesson. Immediately, the surrounding students were excited, accusing and scolding Cross one after another. At the same time, several students of the elite class were sitting by the window of the cafeteria, chatting with each other about the scene just now. Tisk tisk, this brat looks really skilled. Hey, Yoshimura, you are a swordsman, can you do it? Kibin, are you kidding? If that brat didn't brag, the knife just now really went through the bone between the middle finger and the ring finger. It only hurt the flesh, not the bone. I'm still too far away. Hey, Gaspard, the newcomer is here, what do you think? It's just a brat. Whether he can secure a place in the elite class or not is none of our business. Advertisement. As members of the elite class, they were also curious about the rumored Cross and were going to sit and wait to watch the show, but they didn't expect this scene to be a bit unexpected. As far as the knife just now is concerned, the new kid is obviously not a weak werewolf. At that moment, he quickly inserted the table knife into the palm of a person, and he was able to grasp the scale accurately between the bones of the middle finger and ring finger of the palm. This kind of vision and skill, let alone the Marine School, it is difficult for ordinary students, even elite class students, and even some instructors to do it. It's so boring. Cross narrowed his eyes slightly, with an impatient expression on his face. He suddenly grabbed the tray in front of him and lifted it up, along with the food on it, directly hitting the face of the guy who stood up to speak. Hearing a sound of bang, the guy just showed a somewhat smug expression, then his face was covered with macaroni, his whole brain went blank, he raised his head back on the spot, and fell heavily on the ground. At this moment, everyone in the cafeteria was stunned. They didn't expect that the kid in front of them would dare to take the initiative to beat someone under the circumstances of being accused by everyone, it's too arrogant. I know there are a lot of rumors about me today, but I don't bother to pay attention to them, but you interrupt my meal, which makes me very unhappy. At this time, Cross stood up slowly, and said indifferently with a blank face, so, I will give you a chance, let's go together. What? As soon as this remark came out, everyone present did not react for a while. But the people present are all students of Marine School, and the backbone of Marine in the future will not be stupid, so they understood what Cross meant in a flash. Wow, the trough is stretched. Actually, let us go together. Arrogance. It's too arrogant. FK him to death. For a moment, almost everyone became angry, and some grumpy guys rolled up their sleeves on the spot, and rushed towards Ross in an atmosphere. I have convinced you today, and there will be a lot less to do in the future. Cross's eyes flashed a cold light, he stepped forward abruptly, and punched the first male student in the chest like lightning. The opponent only felt a blur in front of his eyes and a pain in his chest, and he flew upside down involuntarily, knocking down several people behind him like a bowling ball. Asking for flowers. Advertisement. Immediately afterwards, Cross rushed directly into the crowd like a tiger descending a mountain, swinging his fists like a hammer, and his legs like a whip. Regardless of whether he was shot or not, they all fell first. In an instant, the entire cafeteria on the second floor was in chaos. Almost most of the students felt that they were underestimated, and rushed forward angrily, trying to defeat Cross with their numbers. It's a pity, how could a flock of sheep beat a tiger? I saw the crowds were crowded, and there was a dense muffled sound of bang 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 from the crowd, and people were constantly being beaten out. I saw that Cross punched to the flesh, beating all the students helplessly, and even few of them connected to his punch. One person beat hundreds of people, and many onlookers were stunned. After all, among the hundreds of people present, not a few remained sober, and there were also many students from the elite class, all sitting in the outermost seats to watch the play. Who would have thought that it would be such a big show? Ah, don't panic. Hold on fast. Strange, monster, damn, how could this happen? Run away, that guy is a monster. It didn't take long for the students in the cafeteria on the second floor to be wailed by Cross alone and fell to the ground countless times. Some people learned the command class well, and quickly commanded the nearest students to form a temporary army formation, but Cross easily broke through, broke the formation alone, and knocked down more people with overwhelming strength. Gradually, many people were so frightened that their hearts were broken, and they turned around and ran away with horror on their faces. Finally, when Cross knocked down the last enemy to the ground, there were people lying down and howling all around. Only dozens of people were left standing by the wall, staring at him dumbfounded. Cross looked around with icy eyes. The inexplicable coercion made the surrounding students feel terrified. Few of them dared to look at him for more than 2 seconds. Most of them lowered their heads quickly the moment their eyes met. Up. I welcome you to challenge me, but it's best to choose after I finish eating, so I don't mind moving around and digesting. After a slight pause, Cross said in a cold voice, otherwise, I can send that guy who disturbed me to the hospital for a while. Don't worry, it's only a skin trauma.